The exact day I got my terminal pancreatic cancer diagnosis. My family was busy throwing a massive birthday party for Yangzi. I dragged my weak body home, begging them for medical money, only for my father to throw my test results on the floor. He accused me of faking cancer to scam them. Later, on my wedding day, Yangzi used a fake suicide note to force my bride to postpone the wedding. So, I climbed the church spire and streamed my own death to the world. Since you all wanted this, I am finally leaving. Next life, I never want to be your son, your brother, or your lover ever again. As I fell under the moonlight, I heard Peeting Hay's hysterical screams. But then, I opened my eyes and was 22 again. This time, I started my broadcast early. I predicted that tomorrow, Yangzi would frame me for gambling, in 3 days he would steal my art to win a competition, and in a month he would fake depression to force my fiancée to marry him. My family called me crazy until every single prediction came true. Then, I typed my last prophecy: in 3 months, I will get pancreatic cancer. Will you leave me to rot this time, too? On my 25th birthday, I got diagnosed. The doctor coldly told me that this was the absolute king of all cancers. Once they find it, it is already terminal. The survival rate is tiny. The only option is to burn through cash to buy a little time, even though the treatment is pure agony. Still in a daze, I rode back home. The second I pushed the door open, I saw Zemming sitting on the couch, grinning and eating fruit from my parents' hands. My sister, Luo Jinghang, was gently wiping his mouth with a tissue. They looked like a perfect, happy family. Their joy was blindingly painful, but when I walked in, their smiles instantly froze, like they were looking at something disgusting. It felt so pathetic. The maid's son was the one being pampered, while I, their biological son, was treated like an outcast. It sounds terrible to say, but this is my reality. Zemming invaded our lives 15 years ago. His father died early, and his mother worked as our maid for years. Since she was hardworking, my family treated her like one of us. When she died suddenly, she used her final breaths to beg my parents to raise her only son. Out of kindness, they agreed. And from that day on, my nightmare began. The day Zemming arrived, my parents and sister told me, Zemming has no parents left. You must be sensible and yield to him. So, my whole life, I gave up everything he wanted. When he wanted my bedroom, I packed my bags and moved to the cold guest room. He cried when he could not beat my grades, so I never dared score high again. He hated the love I got, so they stripped that love away from me and gave every single drop of it to him. I endured it all, but I never expected him to weaponize my silence. He dragged my name through the mud for years. Thanks to his lies, my family saw me as a useless failure, a bully who only wanted to cause pain. Meanwhile, Zemming was the perfect, gentle angel. He stole every bit of my family's affection, ruining any sense of fairness in this house. Clutching my cancer diagnosis in my shaking hand, I walked up to them. I forced out the words, "Dad, Mom, Sis, I have cancer. Could you please lend me some money? The doctor says I must be admitted immediately." 5 years ago, I was a talented painter with a scholarship to study abroad. But because he said, "I am so jealous of my brother," my parents and sister forced me to give up my spot and my artwork. I handed everything over to him. Zemming stole my study abroad scholarship, using my blood, sweat, and tears to win awards. In less than 3 years, he became a famous artist, while I rotted in obscurity, living like a parasite on my parents' table scraps. I have been a ghost here for years. But now that I am actually dying, I hope they would finally care. I hope they would see what they did to me, and show me a little pity. I waited, holding my breath for mercy. But then, my father snatched the papers from my hand, glanced at them, and let out a cruel laugh. My mother did not even look. "Zemming was right," she said. "You are a pathological liar. Keep spinning your little web of lies." I stared in shock, and before I could speak, Zemming spoke up, acting heartbroken. "Brother, I saw you forging that fake report earlier. I did not know what you were planning then, but now it is crystal clear. You have lost your mind just to scam us for cash. How could you fake a terminal illness? Thank God, I warned Mom and Dad, or they would have been totally fooled." After finishing his act, he tried to comfort our parents. "Mom, Dad, do not be mad, do not blame him too much. He said his allowance is just peanuts, and he still spends like a spoiled rich kid. Now that he is drowning in debt, he had to make up this lie to get money. He must be desperate. He is probably backed into a corner." Hearing him twist the truth so horribly, my eyes widened in complete shock. I struggled to speak. "Mom, Dad, I am not lying. I really have cancer. He is framing me." Before I could finish, Luo Jinghang, who had been standing there with a dark face, suddenly lunged forward. She slapped me hard across my face. "You are at rock bottom, and you still try to drag Zemming down. He is nothing like you. We know who he is." My cheek burned with a sharp, fiery pain, but my heart felt like it fell into a dark abyss. In 25 years, my sister had never hit me. She used to love me more than anyone, worrying over every little scratch. But now, she hit her own brother for Zemming's sake. That slap did more than burn my face. It completely shattered the last bit of hope in my heart. As I held my burning cheek, my entire world collapsed around me. My mother slammed her glass down. Enough. There is less than a month until your wedding with Pei Jinghang. Can you just behave? If you keep acting out like this, how can we face the Pei family? My father looked at me with pure disappointment. From now on, you stay inside this house and reflect on your actions. You are not going anywhere. With that, they ushered Zemming upstairs without looking back. I was left standing alone in the quiet wreckage, crying until I could barely breathe. When dinner time came, they crowded around Zemming as they walked downstairs. Since he loves seafood, the table was loaded with his favorite dishes. I have been severely allergic to seafood since childhood, breaking out in hives from a touch. Now, with the cancer, the smell makes my stomach turn. I did not argue anymore. I took one last look, then quietly went to my room. My mother slammed her chopsticks down in anger. Who does he think he is? We raised them both the same way, but he is not worth a fraction of Zemming. My feet paused for a second. I held back tears until I reached my room. Curling up on the bed, I finally broke down. I pulled out my phone and dialed Pei Jinghang. We grew up side by side all these years. When my family hurt me, he was my only warmth. He is the only one left who will believe me and have my back. The call finally connected. Hearing her gentle voice, I choked back tears, ready to tell her about my cancer. But just as I opened my mouth, her tone abruptly shifted. She cut in instantly, saying, "Jinghang, Zemming is on the other line. It sounds like a total emergency, I have to go." The words had barely left her lips before she hung up without waiting for my reply. With zero hesitation, she treated his call like her absolute priority. As I stared blankly at the dark screen, the cold dial tone buzzed, sinking my heart into an icy abyss. Even though we were physically close, a wave of panic gripped me. When did this gap begin? Since when did Pei Jinghang care so deeply about Liang Zemming? A dark dread gnawed at my soul. It felt like she was slipping away, but I desperately tried to reassure myself. No, it is impossible. Jinghang loves me too much, I could never lose her. Over the next few days, my parents locked me inside, ignoring my desperate pleas that I needed a crucial hospital follow-up. They dismissed my illness as a cheap excuse to escape and kept me deadbolted inside. As the cancer metastasized, pure agony racked my body, forcing me to swallow fistfuls of painkillers from my drawer just to survive. Meanwhile, the happy laughter of Liang Zemming and my family echoed from downstairs, mocking my misery. Somehow, I survived until our wedding day. That morning, Pei Jinghang stood in the dressing room, wearing her white designer gown. She looked so breathtakingly elegant, graceful, and blessed with a radiant smile that made my eyes well up. We had been childhood sweethearts for years, journeying from school uniforms straight to this wedding gown. Finally, I was walking down the aisle to build a home with her. From now on, I would never have to suffer in silence because of Liang Zemming again. Jinghang walked over and took my hand. Noticing my pale, ghostly look, she frowned. "Why are your hands so cold? Are you okay?" Before I could speak a word, my parents burst in, frantic and terrified. Grabbing Jinghang's arm, they cried out with sheer dread. "Jinghang, Zemming is missing." Her face instantly lost all its warmth. "What? He was just here a moment ago. How could he vanish like that?" Jinghang's brows knitted, her eyes flooded with deep worry. She tried to offer some comfort before leaving to search for him, but our ceremony was less than 10 minutes away. A dark premonition hit me. If she walked out now, I would lose her forever. Panic-stricken, I grabbed her hand tightly. "Jinghang, the wedding is starting. Let's finish the ceremony first." The words had barely left my mouth when my mother glared at me with pure venom. "How can you be so selfish? Your brother is missing, and you only care about your wedding." In that crucial second, Jinghang made her choice. "Jinghang," she said. "The wedding is postponed. Finding him comes first." She brushed my hand away and left with my parents. She chose Zemming. She abandoned me. Staring at the empty doorway, I felt like I was drowning in a dark, suffocating ocean. Soon, my parents' distant screams echoed through the halls. Zemming had tried to end his life. He had collapsed in the restroom with a slashed wrist, leaving a note nearby. It read, "Sister Jinghang, you are getting married. My hidden love must remain unspoken. I wish you and Big Brother eternal happiness. Next life, I will find you first." Outside the hospital operating room, the family waited anxiously until the red light went out. The doctor lowered his mask. Fortunately, he was found in time. "The wound is shallow and he is out of danger, but please avoid triggering his mild depression again." The moment Zemming was wheeled out, my parents rushed forward. "You foolish boy. Why would you do something so reckless? If we lost you, how could we possibly go on? If you love Jinghang, why did you stay silent and suffer alone? You are breaking our hearts." Zemming collapsed into my mother's arms, sobbing bitterly like a tragic victim. "I am so sorry, Mom, Dad. You have both been so good to me. How could I ever try to steal Sister Jinghang away from Big Brother? I did not want to burden anyone or put you in a difficult spot. But I just love Sister Jinghang too much. I thought I could swallow the pain, but seeing her standing there with him was too agonizing. It felt like I was literally dying. Please, just let me go, let me die. My parents clung to him, weeping in a frantic huddle. They completely forgot that today was supposed to be my wedding day, staying by Zemming's side the entire afternoon, doting on him until he finally slept. That night, only Euron stayed at the hospital while the others returned home. The moment I walked through the door, my parents called out, Jingxing. It had been years since they spoke to me so gently, yet a wave of absolute dread washed over me instead. Sure enough, my father spoke first. Jingxing, consider this a plea. Zemming loves Jinghang so much, why don't you just step aside and let them be together? I could not believe my ears. It felt as if a jagged tear had ripped through my chest, letting an icy wind howl through the void. Then, my mother joined in with a tearful, heartbreaking lament. That poor boy has suffered so much. He lost his mother at a young age, and with absolutely nothing to his name, he has been battling deep depression all alone. You already have everything, so please stop competing with Zemming. Hearing about the silent agony he endured in isolation is just too heartbreaking for us. Jingxing, just give up Jinghang for Zemming's sake. I felt like I was falling into a bottomless abyss. I never imagined my own parents could be this delusional. They were so obsessed with Liang Zemming's depression, yet they did not care that their biological son has cancer. Without medical treatment, my days are already numbered. My entire world started spinning out of control. For a split second, I wondered if these people were even my real parents. After a heavy silence, I finally spoke. Jinghang is a human being, not some prize to be handed over. Before they could argue, the front door swung open. Pei Jinghang stood in the doorway. I do not agree to this. A spark of hope ignited in my chest. I knew she would protect me, even if the whole world turned away. But then, she continued, but Zemming is too unstable. Jingxing and I are postponing our wedding until his condition is under control. Furthermore, I will be staying by his side to make sure he has no more suicidal thoughts. My heart plummeted into the dark abyss once again. Looking at her, I felt an unbridgeable distance growing between us, forming a deep chasm I could never cross. When she made these cold, executive decisions, did she even consider consulting me for a single second? Did she realize that my cancer means I might not live that long? But looking into her cold, unwavering gaze, I realized how merciless her voice actually sounded as she said, Jingxing, be reasonable. Will you really stand by and watch Zemming throw his life away over you? Despair crushed me. I bit my lip until it bled, trapping 1,000 silent screams inside. I knew I could never change their minds. Looking at my terminal diagnosis, I finally gave in, whispered, fine. I hated resorting to blackmail just to get $1 million, but my time was running out. Sure enough, my parents' expressions darkened the very moment they heard the price. Their faces were a mask of pure disappointment, as if they regretted ever giving birth to me. But in the end, Liang Jimin's life was their priority, and they couldn't risk triggering his fragile state. They finally caved and agreed to my demand. In the days that followed, the family treated Liang Jimin like royalty. Whatever craving he had, my sister, no matter how late, would drive across 3 districts to hand deliver it. My parents hovered around him 24/7, terrified that the slightest disturbance might upset him. Meanwhile, for me, Pei Chenge acted as his ultimate guardian, even escorting him up and down the stairs. I became nothing more than an eyesore in my own home, even on the day of our joint birthday. Everyone gathered around to celebrate Liang Jimin, completely oblivious to the fact that it was my birthday, too. The family showered him with meticulously chosen gifts, presenting them to him with wide smiles. My parents personally gave him a blessed peace amulet they had prayed for while kneeling across over 100 stone steps, their eyes overflowing with love. Happy birthday, we just want you to stay healthy and safe forever. Luo Yiran even fastened a limited edition watch onto his wrist. When it was time for Pei Jinghang to present her gift, Liang Jimin lowered his head, blushing. Sister Jinghang, could you give me a kiss? Pei Jinghang looked up, her gaze colliding with my shattered, hollow eyes. She paused for a heartbeat, then leaned in, placing a soft, gentle kiss on his cheek. In that exact moment, I swear I heard the sound of my heart fracturing. I turned in a panic and fled upstairs, refusing to witness the scene below as they crowded around to cut the cake in perfect familial bliss. Fumbling with my phone, I quickly opened my contacts and dialed my specialist, Dr. Lin. The funds for my treatment should have been transferred. When can I be admitted? The person on the other end fell silent, then asked, what treatment funds, Mr. Luo? We haven't received a cent in your account. I hung up instantly and checked my banking app. The balance was an absolute zero. My body began to shiver as a numbing chill crept from the crown of my head, soaking through my bones. Just as I was about to head downstairs to confront my parents, Liang Jimin approached me, holding a slice of cake, his lips curled into a smirk. Hey, big brother, were you looking for your little life-saving fund? My bad, truly. I forgot to mention that I've already transferred every single cent out. All of mom and dad's banking passwords are set to my birthday, so it went through without a hitch. Forget your treatment. It's over. I want you to be abandoned by everyone and lose absolutely everything. Just stay here like a good boy and wait for death. Staring at his smug, gloating face, I could no longer hold back my explosive rage. I swung my hand and lashed out at his face. At that exact moment, the others arrived, wondering why he hadn't returned. What they witnessed was me viciously slapping Liang Jimin and sending him tumbling down the staircase. Because of the struggle, Liang Jimin's previous wounds ripped open, leaving a trail of blood splattered across the steps. Pale and trembling, he grabbed our parents' sleeves. Mom, Dad, I only asked brother to come down for some cake, but he hates me so much he shoved me down the stairs. As those final words left his lips, he lost consciousness. My parents were beyond livid, shaking with fury. The way they looked at me made me feel like they wanted to carve the flesh right off my bones. Luo Jinghang, who had just rushed in, delivered a brutal kick to the back of my knee, forcing me down. Jimin is your brother. How could you be so utterly heartless and cruel? If anything happens to him, we will hold you personally responsible. I collapsed onto the floor in agony, my vision clouded by a hazy white mist. I looked up desperately at Pei Qinghe, but she only offered a gaze filled with icy disdain and pure disappointment. Without a word, she gathered Liang Jimin in her arms and carried him out. I was left entirely alone in the house. I felt like a fish tossed onto a chopping block, sliced open while still alive. The pain was unbearable. Not a single soul believed in me. The funds for my treatment had vanished. Liang Jimin had successfully stolen my parents, my sister, and even the woman I loved most. In a single night, I had been stripped of everything. A sudden wave of agony hit, and I violently coughed up a spray of blood, curling into a ball on the freezing floor. It turns out that calling pancreatic cancer the most painful wasn't an exaggeration. Right now, every single pore feels like it's being pierced by poison needles. The slightest movement brings a pain so sharp I could die. I continued to retch up blood, my consciousness fading into a heavy fog. A chilling premonition washed over me, telling me today is my deadline. But I can't let it end like this. I refuse to die such a pathetic, misunderstood death. I have to make everyone witness the ugly truth. I need my parents, my sister, and Pei Qinghe to realize I never lied once, and I need them to see the devil behind Liang Jimin's mask. When that moment comes, will they feel even a second of regret? I fumbled for my phone and logged into the streaming platform, starting the camera as I typed with trembling, desperate fingers, the title, Global Deathstream. I was jolted awake by violent shaking. Opening my eyes, I realized I had passed out on the freezing floor, lying there for several agonizing hours. Standing before me was my entire family and Pei Qinghe. The moment they saw me open my eyes, their worry instantly turned to pure rage. Luo Jinghang, what kind of insanity is this? Now you're broadcasting death threats just because you didn't get the money? What is this global death stream nonsense? I looked at my phone and realized that while unconscious, my stream had skyrocketed to the top of the trending charts. My parents, my sister, and even Pei Qinghe had witnessed the broadcast. Perhaps the sight of me passing out was too raw, because the viewers in the comments were deeply shaken, shouting for someone to save me. But when they heard my mother claim I was just seeking clout and staging a broadcast to scam people for money, they felt their compassion had been completely betrayed. The chat exploded with venomous insults and pure rage. Luo Jinghang lunged forward and snatched my phone to kill the stream, then violently hauled me up by my collar. Stop faking it with this cheap ketchup act, pretending you lost blood because of your petty stunt. The one actually suffering from blood loss is Jimin. The hospital's blood bank is running dangerously low, and since you're type O, you are going to donate your blood to him right now. Get moving. The sudden pull made my vision go pitch black. I had zero strength to resist as they shoved me out. Watching them scramble to throw me into the car and speed toward the hospital with such desperate urgency, I couldn't tell if they rushed back to the house because they feared I was actually dying, or if they just wanted to harvest my blood for Liang Jimin. As the cold metallic needle pierced my vein, my entire body convulsed with a sharp tremor. Meanwhile, my parents, my sister, and even Pei Qinghe were all anxiously hovering around Liang Jimin's bedside. Seeing his complexion regain color from the transfusion, everyone let out a collective sigh of immense relief. Jimin, are you feeling any better? Tell mom what you want, I will head home and cook it for you. Going home takes too long, mom. Jimin, whatever you crave, your sister will buy it for you right now. Liang Jimin threw himself into their arms, seemingly moved to tears. They took turns doting on him, gently stroking his head. Tucked away in the corner, staring at this scene like an alien from a different world, I struggled to haul myself up from the hard plastic. I limped toward the exit, dragging myself forward, one painful step at a time. The second I cleared the doorway, my body gave out completely and I blacked out. When I finally woke up, I was in Dr. Lin's office. Seeing my eyes flutter open, Dr. Lin looked down at me with deep concern. Mr. Luo, where on earth have you been? Do you realize how fast your condition is progressing? If you don't get admitted for treatment immediately, you have at most 1 month left to live. In your current physical state, how could you possibly be donating blood? I had no words to offer. After a long, agonizing silence, I simply shook my head in utter defeat. No money. Dr. Lin's face twisted in shock. The Luo family? They are a top-tier wealthy dynasty. How is it possible they lack the funds to save their own son's life? Where is your family? My family. At that single word, tears began spilling down my face, completely beyond my control. I didn't say a single word, letting them flow in silence. Shaking all over, I stumbled out of Dr. Lin's office like a ghost. Without even realizing it, I found myself standing outside Liang Jianming's hospital room again. The door was slightly open. My parents and sister had already left, leaving only Pei Qinghe by his bedside. Heaven knows what Jianming whispered to her, but his eyes suddenly filled with manipulative tears. Then, he pulled Pei Qinghe toward him by her shoulders, leaning in to press his lips against hers. She hesitated for a heartbeat, but she didn't pull away. Just as their lips were about to meet, I accidentally kicked a nearby trash can. The sudden clatter startled them both. The moment she saw me standing outside, Pei Qinghe shoved Liang Jianming aside and ran after me. I wasn't the one cheating, yet for some reason, I felt a sudden panic. The moment our eyes met, I turned and fled like a coward. Pei Qinghe lunged forward and grabbed my arm, looking at me with panic in her eyes. Jingshuan, it's not what you think. I felt completely hollow. What exactly do I think? Tell me, Qinghe, have you forgotten that I am your actual fiancé? Pei Qinghe knitted her brows, her face tightening. I haven't forgotten, but Jianming is in such a fragile state right now. He can't handle any stress. If you hadn't pushed him down the stairs, his condition wouldn't be this terrible. Hearing the resentment dripping from her voice, my heart felt like a cold, empty wasteland. I could only let out a bitter, hollow laugh at the sheer injustice of it. So that justifies you kissing him? Do all the promises you made to me mean nothing now? Looking back, Pei Qinghe and I used to be so deeply, genuinely in love. We had known each other since we were 5, growing up as childhood sweethearts. Our first time holding hands, our very first kiss, we shared every single milestone of our lives together. When my entire family started favoring Liang Jianming, only Pei Qinghe stood by me with total loyalty. I once carried her to school on my back when she was sick. She held an umbrella over me when my family made me kneel in the rain. Every birthday, she made me a unique gift, promising I was the only one she loved. Those words still ring in my ears. Yet now, in the blink of an eye, she is holding his hand. Gazing into my devastated eyes, she didn't even bother to explain. Instead, she just stared at me coldly. The man I loved was the pure, kind-hearted Luo Jinghang. Look at the monster you have become now. Have you even looked in the mirror? I stood there, completely frozen. Listening to her baseless accusations, I finally realized that the last person who promised to always believe in me had also crossed over to Liang Jianming's side. Knowing any explanation would be completely useless, I turned away in total despair and walked out. Once home, I pulled out my phone with a heavy, final decision. I opened the streaming app and set up the broadcast. The title this time, Global Death Broadcast, 30-Day Countdown. My previous stream had already caused a massive stir online. The second I went live, thousands of viewers flooded in. But this time, the chat was a toxic mess of pure hate. Are you seriously faking your death for money? If you are going to die, just do it already and stop streaming. Disgusting. I ignored the wave of hate, recording just a few minutes of footage before shutting it down. I wanted enough to serve as a replay later. The very second the screen went black, a violent pounding erupted at my front door. I walked over and swung it wide open. Standing there was my sister, Luo Jinghang, her eyes red with fury. She shoved me aside, snatched my phone right off the desk, and smashed it hard onto the floor. What are you trying to achieve with this absolute garbage? Can you not go one single day without drama? I watched numbly as she ground her heel into my phone. My heart was already like that screen shattered into a million sharp pieces. I stayed silent, which only fueled her anger. I know you are pathologically jealous of him, she spat. You are envious because he is better than you in every way, and because our parents love him more. You think this pathetic stunt makes you his equal? Not a chance. A death stream? You have completely sold your soul for a quick buck, haven't you? Look at what people are saying. You might not care about your dignity, but we do. The Luo family still has a reputation. I never imagined the sister who once adored me would treat me like this. Her words were so cruel, they cut me to the bone. Facing this deep betrayal, I couldn't even find the strength to argue. As Luo Jinghang finally turned to leave the room, I called out to her. Sister, remember when you loved me? Remember that boy who used to bully me? He tore my homework and broke my toys. You ran straight to my school and stood by me, swearing to protect your little brother. You even cut up his clothes to warn him. And later, when those thugs started harassing you outside of school, I secretly followed you every single day to keep you safe. I got into a massive fight with them, ending up with 3 broken ribs and spending a month in the hospital. Whenever you got a treat or a new toy, I was always first. When our parents tried to punish me, you would shield me and take the blame. You said I was the best brother in the world. Sister, how did we end up like this? Luo Jinghang froze in her tracks, her shoulders trembling. She stood in silence for several long seconds before turning to spit out the most venomous words she could find. Because you aren't worth it. With that, she vanished without looking back. Not worth it. I burst into a manic laugh, laughing until hot tears streamed down my face. After all these years of being her brother, my entire existence was reduced to those 4 words. In the grim days that followed, I kept streaming my global countdown every single day. The non-stop insults in the chat were exhausting, though a few curious viewers wondered. Since he's running a countdown, let's just wait until the clock hits 0 and see what happens. We'll see if he actually drops dead or not. Won't the truth be obvious then? But those rare voices of reason were quickly buried by the hate. I simply didn't care. My parents ignored me. Their entire universe revolved around the depressed Liang Jianming, and they couldn't spare me a second thought. On the day he was discharged, the family mobilized. They joined forces with Pei Qinghe to bring him home in triumph. When they walked in, he was clinging to her arm. She held a bunch of roses, smiling radiantly. My sister escorted him upstairs while the others ignored me. Seeing how pale and ghostly I looked, Pei Qinghe stepped forward and took my hand. How did you lost so much weight in just a few days? I was wrong about what happened last time, and I shouldn't have spoken to you like that. I'm sorry, can you forgive me? As she finished, she pulled a watch out of a nearby shopping bag. I bought this specifically for you. Do you like it? I had no idea what game they were playing now, so I stood there like a hollow shell, letting her fasten it onto my trembling wrist. When dinner was served, Liang Jiaming didn't bother coming downstairs. Surprisingly, my parents and Yiran didn't act like they usually did. They didn't even insist on waiting for him to start the meal. Mom had personally cooked a massive feast, and the whole family was warm, urging me to eat more. In that moment, I couldn't even describe the storm of emotions inside me. After all these agonizing years, it felt like I was finally experiencing the warmth of home again. I gazed down at the spread of food, though most of it was still a variety of seafood. I had no inkling of the storm brewing, not until Mom placed a piece of crab onto my plate. Jinghang, eat more. I froze. It had been forever since I felt that kind of tenderness. Just as I was about to force myself to eat the crab, her voice drifted across the table. Jinghang, Jiming may have been discharged from the hospital, but the doctor says his depression is still critical. All these years he lived with us, he felt like an outsider in someone else's home, hiding every single painful thought away. He truly suffered so much in silence. He is so deeply in love with Cheng, he's so obsessed, that he simply cannot function. If we force you and Cheng He to go through with the wedding, it will literally be the death of Jiaiming. My hand stiffened instantly, and the crab fell from my chopsticks with a dull thud. A terrifying chill washed over my entire body. I stared blankly at my parents, then at the perpetually silent Pei Chenghe. So this sudden kindness today was all just to pressure me into postponing my wedding with Chenghe again. Mother hesitated for a fleeting second before opening her mouth. No, the wedding will proceed as scheduled. It's just that the groom will be replaced by Jiaiming. She hurried to explain further. But don't worry, it's only a fake marriage. Legally, the ceremony won't count. Jinghang, please help Jiaiming. Just consider it a way to fulfill his lifelong dream of being married to Cheng He. It felt like a massive thunderbolt had detonated right above my head, sending a shock wave of pain through my soul. That tremor was instantly replaced by surging, white-hot rage. I stood up, trembling with disbelief. Fulfill his dream? What kind of twisted dream is that? It's not like he's on his deathbed. And besides, why does my fiancée have to be the one to fulfill his fantasies? Beside me, Pei Cheng He finally broke her silence. Jinghang, watch your tone. There's no need to be so vile. Only now did I agonizingly realize that every decision had already been made without me. This wasn't a discussion, they were simply notifying me. I lifted my gaze to Pei Cheng He in absolute despair, my voice trembling. So you agreed to this too? Pei Cheng He stiffened instantly. She had never seen me with such a hopeless, piercing expression. The way the light faded from my eyes looked as if my entire soul was being hollowed out. A sudden, inexplicable panic flickered in her heart. After a moment of hesitation, she finally spoke. Jinghang, could you just endure this for a bit? Seeing my stubborn silence, Luo Jinghang spoke up with visible irritation. This is a unanimous decision made by the entire family. We aren't asking for your permission, we are informing you. Jiming has endured so much agony already, what's the big deal if you just suck it up for once? Beside her, my parents echoed that coldness, spouting the usual demands for me to be patient and give in to Liang Jiming's every whim. I felt as if my head was about to explode into a million pieces. The sheer agony surging in my chest drove me to total insanity. I finally hit my breaking point and snapped. I slammed my chopsticks down and flipped the entire table over in a violent rage. Seafood scattered across the floor in a disgusting mess, plates and bowls shattering into jagged shards. You always tell me to endure it. Just how much longer am I supposed to suffer in silence? Mom, Dad, do you even have a clue that I've been deathly allergic to seafood since I was a child? I can't even touch this stuff, let alone eat it. The one who loves seafood is Liang Jiaming. From the moment we were kids, I've had to step aside for him in everything. He wanted my bedroom, so I was exiled to the coldest guest room. He wanted my pet, and because I wouldn't just hand it over, he secretly drowned it. When I was burning up with a fever, you were busy taking him to his piano lessons. On parent-teacher night, you always chose to be his parents instead, leaving me alone to face the teacher's questions. He hated the smell of pork, so ever since Liang Jiaming moved into this house, you haven't cooked my favorite braised pork even once. Do you have any idea how that feels? You were supposed to be my father, my mother, my sister, and my own fiancé. I broke down sobbing, desperate to vent every ounce of bitterness rotting in my soul. But they just stood there, staring at me like I was some raving, psychotic stranger. After an agonizing silence, they finally opened their mouths. My father spat. Luo Jinghang, you already have more than enough. Is it really so hard to step aside for Jiaming just this once? My mother added, Luo Jinghang, Jiaming is your brother. Are you truly so petty? My sister snapped, Luo Jinghang, the decision has already been finalized. Whether you like it or not, you will yield to him. And Pei Cheng, he whispered, Jinghang, it's already decided. Just endure it a little longer, okay? At that very moment, looking at this table of people my closest kin, yet total strangers, my heart finally withered and died. I realized the crushing truth. No matter how hard I struggle or scream, I will never escape the suffocating shadow of Liang Jiaming. My own parents, my sister, my lover, they had long ago become Jiaming's unbreakable shield. Facing me, they were only ready to deliver the fatal blow. I didn't say another word. I simply shook my head and let out a bitter, hollow laugh, mocking them, or maybe my own pathetic self. From then on, they completely disregarded my feelings, diving headfirst into planning the wedding for Pei Cheng He and Liang Jiaming. My family was obsessively dedicated to it, hiring world-renowned designers for their wedding attire and even doubling the dowry they had originally set for me. They claimed that since Jiaming was an adopted son, they couldn't let anyone look down on him. This was supposed to be a fake wedding, yet they all played their roles to perfection, making it feel more authentic than my real wedding ever could. The entire house overflowed with joy and celebration. While they meticulously prepped for Jiaming's wedding, I remained holed up in the solitude of my room, coughing up agonizing streaks of blood time and time again. Numbly, I flushed the blood-soaked tissues down the toilet and sat by the window, staring into nothingness. My supply of painkillers had completely run dry. The agony was so unbearable, I began slamming my head against the wall, but even those desperate acts couldn't dull the excruciating pain of the cancer. I went from desperately craving a chance at life to praying for a swift, final release. When you are spat upon and discarded by the ones you love most, living becomes a far greater torture than death itself. On the final day of the global death stream, it was officially time for Pei Cheng He and Liang Jiming's wedding. My wedding was supposed to happen at St. Maria's Chapel. Right before things kicked off, my family finally realized I was missing. But of course, not a single one of them cared. They probably figured I was just throwing another tantrum, hiding because I hated this sham of a wedding so much. They assumed that once the knot was tied, I would eventually fall in line. So Pei Ching-hei simply ordered her assistant to look for me, then turned her focus back to the ceremony. As it officially began, my father took Liang Jiaming by the arm. He slowly walked him down the aisle toward Pei Ching-hei, under the glare of global media. As the wedding march echoed, Pei Ching-hei walked toward Liang Jiaming, but something stopped her. For a brief moment, it was my face she pictured. She wondered how I would look wearing that grand groom's suit, standing right there before her. Ever since we were kids, we used to play bride and groom. Even then, I would find a makeshift veil to drape over her head, stubbornly demanding that she promise to marry me. Lost in these bittersweet memories, Pei Ching-hei drifted off. Only when the priest cleared his throat did she finally snap back, placing her hand in Liang Jiming's as the priest began reciting the sacred vows to make them husband and wife. Suddenly, the heavy doors slammed open. Pei Ching-hei's assistant burst inside, her face pale with absolute terror, screaming, "President Pei, something terrible has happened. Mr. Luo is on the roof. He is live streaming his own suicide." The color drained instantly from everyone's faces, while high above, on the chapel rooftop, I sat perched on the edge, legs dangling in the freezing wind. It had been forever since I felt such peace. Perhaps when death is close and you let go of everything, once the emotional chains break, the pain just fades. On my screen, the comments were flashing faster than ever. One wrote, "Today is the final day of the countdown." Another said, "I can't believe he's actually doing it. If you're gonna jump, just jump already, don't let us down. If this is a scam, you're going to hell anyway." Others laughed, saying, "Stop scaring him, guys, a coward like him doesn't actually have the guts to die." I numbly swiped past the toxic comments until I saw them, my parents, my sister, and Pei Qinghe, all scrambling to join the stream. Only then did I slowly lift my eyes, speaking to them through the camera. "Mom, Dad. Why did you abandon me on my graduation day just to stay by Liang Jeming's side? I wanted someone to bring me flowers and take photos with me. 2. I was always deathly allergic to seafood, and I loved braised pork. Why did you stop making it for me? I wasn't the one who broke that vase at home. I never bullied my classmates, and I never threw money around like some spoiled brat. Why did you always choose to believe Liang Jeming? You always forgot he was adopted, while I was your own flesh and blood. I didn't choose any of this, but it left me bitter. I have cancer, a disease that could have been cured if you'd just listened." I let out a tearful laugh. "Mom, Dad, this is the last time I will ever call you that. I forgave you time and time again, yet you constantly repaid me by inflicting the deepest, most painful wounds. I wonder, when today is over, will you ever regret never giving me an ounce of love? Honestly, it doesn't even matter anymore. I don't care. From this moment on, I no longer hunger for your affection." Wiping away a tear, I forced a bitter smile. "Sister, you used to cherish me, but the second Liang Jeming entered our home, you became a stranger. Your favorite brother became Liang Jeming, and every luxury was reserved for him. That is fine. From today on, Liang Jeming will be the only brother you have left. Are you satisfied now?" The live chat fell dead silent for a second, then erupted into total chaos. People typed, "What kind of monsters are these parents? Discarding their own flesh and blood for an adopted kid? Wait, if this is true, then his cancer must be real, too. This stream is actually happening. Track his location. Does anyone know where he is? Save him. Look at the blood, it has to be real, he's bleeding so much." I stared at the panicking comments, and touched my face. That is when I realized, without me even feeling it, blood was streaming from my nose and eyes. The doctor's warning that late-stage pancreatic cancer would be hell was an understatement. I stood up on trembling legs and unfastened the watch Pei Qinghe had given me. I tossed it into the open air, watching it plummet toward the earth. I cast one last look at the screen. "Pei Qinghe, we grew up together. You promised we would never betray each other. I truly, deeply loved you, and wanted to spend my life with you. But my feelings end right here." Pulling myself upright on the very peak of the chapel overlooking the city, my life concludes in absolute agony. I spread my arms wide and closed my eyes. Just as you all wished, I am finally leaving. If there is a next life, I never want to be a son of the Luo family, or fall in love with Pei Qinghe ever again. Goodbye, everyone. Let us never meet again. As the final words left my lips, I stepped off into the abyss. Pei Qinghe and my family, who had rushed out of the chapel, barely reached the entrance when a violent, whistling wind roared past. Amid the terrified screams of the crowd, my body slammed heavily onto the ground right before their eyes. Pei Qinghe stood completely frozen, unable to snap back to reality. Her vision was consumed by the rapidly expanding pool of my crimson blood, stripping away her ability to think. She watched in a daze as they carried my lifeless body away. She watched Liang Jeming spiral into hysteria, and my parents collapse into each other, wailing in agony. She saw my sister, Luo Yuran, shift from shock to soul-crushing heartbreak, before delivering a fierce, resentful slap across Liang Jeming's face. Pei Qinghe remained utterly silent. It was as if all sound had vanished. Her world faded into a dull gray, and every person and object lost its color. Only the spreading stain of my blood continued to grow, drowning out everything else. This was when she truly understood that real heartbreak begins with numbness. The second she realized she had lost me forever, her heart seemed to stop beating. Every sensation of pain fell into a dead stop, leaving her completely empty. The ambulance arrived and departed just as quickly. The paramedics could only shake their heads, wasted by cancer, weakened by neglect, and shattered by the fall. I had drawn my last breath long ago. Resuscitation was pointless. My family contacted the funeral home to take my remains away. My parents wept uncontrollably, and my sister whispered something to her with furrowed brows, but Pei Qinghe didn't hear a word. She remained frozen long after everyone else had vanished. Silence reclaimed the area, and my bloodstain was scrubbed clean, yet there she stood motionless in her white wedding gown. Near a roadside shop, a young boy was playfully frolicking in the overgrown bushes by the path. Suddenly, he raised his right hand high, clutching something tight, and began jumping for joy while screaming, "Mama, look, I found a super pretty watch." Pei Qinghe felt a chilling premonition wash over her. She stiffly turned her head, staring blankly at the boy. The blue diamond shimmered with a brilliant, blinding luster, flashing vividly right before her eyes. She lunged forward, grabbing the boy's hand with such force that he instantly burst into a frantic wail. His mother rushed over, shrieking, "What are you doing? Let go of my son." Pei Qinghe acted possessed, clawing for the watch as a broken whisper escaped her lips over and over. "This is mine, it's the last thing he left for me." Having just witnessed the horror that unfolded outside, the shopkeeper was still trembling with shock. Hearing Pei Qinghe's delusional mutterings, she terrifiedly slapped the watch from her son's hand, grabbed him, and retreated back into the safety of the shop. "Don't touch things you don't understand, brat. That's a dead man's possession. It is cursed and full of bad luck. Wash your hands immediately." Once the mother and son had vanished, Pei Qinghe reached out with trembling reverence toward the watch abandoned on the cold roadside stone. Her fingers gently brushed away the specks of dust, clutching it so tightly in her palm that her entire body began to shudder violently. Suddenly, her phone erupted with a piercing ringtone. Pei Qinghe frowned and numbly answered the call, her expression remaining a mask of hollow indifference. Luo Yuran's voice cracked over the line. "What are you doing? Why Jinghang is about to be cremated? Aren't you coming to see him one last time?" At the sound of Luo Yuran's sharp words, Pei Qinghe's heart suffered a brutal, agonizing spasm. Instantly, it felt as though every suppressed nerve ending had revived, and a sharp visceral agony surged through her. Her internal organs began to throb with a violent rhythmic pain. She craned her neck, gasping desperately for air, but the moment oxygen hit her lungs, the pain became truly suffocating. It felt like an eternity before she finally heard her own voice. I'm coming right now." But there was only silence on the other end. Luo Yuran had already cut the connection. Still, Pei Qinghe ended up taking my ashes. Luo Yuran was vehemently opposed at first. Even if I loathed my parents and detested my own sister, I was still a blood member of the Luo family. But Pei Qinghe insisted on bringing me to the ocean, so in death, I could finally be free, unburdened by anything suffocating. While alive, I was constantly trapped in that house, gasping for air in a toxic atmosphere. After falling ill, the agony was beyond words. Now that I'm gone, I should surely not spend eternity in the place that broke my heart. So Luo Yuran eventually gave in. Ignoring our parents' protests and their performative grief, she handed my remains over to Pei Qinghe. She returned to the mansion looking like a hollow shell. Liang Jimin was locked in his room. It was him, he's the one who destroyed me. Though everyone played a part in this tragedy, the mastermind behind my misery was Liang Jimin. If only he hadn't been so consumed by jealousy. If only his greed wasn't a bottomless pit. If only he hadn't used such ruthless, underhanded tactics. But since he was all Uncle and Auntie Liang left behind, she couldn't kill him to avenge me. Yet, as my rooftop accusations echoed in her mind, Luo Yuran felt her chest tighten with a surge of bitter bile. I was the little brother she had adored for years. What on earth had happened to us? When we were kids, just to see me smile, she'd travel any distance to buy my favorite treats. Whenever I caused trouble or provoked our parents, she would be my iron shield, refusing to let them touch me. But the moment Liang Jimin stepped into our lives, she felt like I was transforming into a stranger, day by day, becoming greedy, selfish, and supposedly addicted to gambling. She lost count of how often she saw Liang Jimin in tears, sobbing like a misunderstood child and whining about how cruelly I treated him. It chilled her to the bone that the brother she had so lovingly protected was allegedly spending every day tormenting Liang Jimin. That was exactly why she poured everything into Liang Jimin, becoming so obsessed that she neglected her own flesh and blood. But she forgot something crucial. The little brother she raised with her own hands since childhood. Every time my face contorted in agony, her heart felt hollowed out. My final dying wish was actually a desperate prayer to the heavens, begging to never have a single connection to the Luo family again. Sitting on that rooftop, I had unleashed those hopeless accusations, my face a mask of absolute finality, etched with pure disappointment and deep-seated loathing. How she desperately wished she could do it all over again. If she had a second chance to restart this nightmare, she would protect her real brother with her life, never letting him suffer another ounce of injustice. If she could turn back time, she would be right there on his graduation day, holding a grand, magnificent ceremony just for me, celebrating my achievements. If only she could start over, she would personally cook me the braised pork I loved so much. If we could go back, she would personally escort me to every hospital checkup, stay by my side through every surgery, and care for me with her entire being, ensuring I never had to endure that soul-crushing pain again. If only it could all be undone. But it was too late. I had already abandoned them in absolute despair. I was gone, and she'd never have the chance to tell me. It was my fault, Jinghang. Sister was wrong. I blinked, jolting in a daze. The expected bone-shattering impact never came. Instead, it felt like someone was gently tapping my shoulder. I snapped my eyes open to see my sister, Luo Yuran, standing before me with an irritated frown, her eyes locked onto mine, her hands still firmly gripping my shoulder. I froze, scanning the room in utter bewilderment. Liang Jimin was cowering behind our parents with a fake, hurt expression. My sister was fuming, holding on to me like she was ready to snap. I recognized every detail of the furniture and the layout. This was my home. Speak up. Why on earth would you bully your classmates? Seeing me looking around with a vacant, confused stare, Luo Yuran repeated sharply. Today was supposed to be my birthday celebration, but then I hear from Zemming that you've been bullying and using our family's wealth at school to terrorize other students. He even has audio recordings as proof. Luo Yuran interrogated me, but I could only manage to stand there and stammer out a weak denial. If you don't tell the truth, I'll restrict your accounts and freeze your cards instantly. That way, you won't be able to use our wealth to torment your peers. But instead of panicking, I let out a faint, hollow laugh, muttering something under my breath that Luo Yuran couldn't quite catch. She knitted her brows and snapped. What did you just say? I shot a glance at her, my eyes completely devoid of sorrow. Instead, there was only endless, icy indifference, as if she were a total stranger. Luo Yuran was visibly shaken by the cold in my eyes, a sudden, inexplicable fear washing over her, followed by an even sharper wave of fury. How dare I do these things and refuse to confess? How dare I look at her like that? But I cut her off, fixing a death stare on Liang Jimin. A mocking smirk played on my lips. Liang Jimin, mark my words, this is the absolute last chance I'm giving you. If you come clean to mom, dad, and sis right now, I will let all your past transgressions slide. Jiang Jiming froze, stunned by my ultimatum. For some reason he could not grasp, he felt I was fundamentally different now, changed in a single heartbeat. It was as if I had become a completely different person. Hearing my cold threat, a flash of genuine panic flickered within Liang Jiming, but he quickly masked it, putting on a pitiful face for our parents. Everything I said is the absolute truth, he whimpered. Brother, Seeing this, our father exploded in a blind rage. He raised his hand and swung a violent slap right toward my face, only for me to catch his wrist in midair with ease. He stared in shock at the boy gripping his arm, unable to believe this was actually his son. You dare to fight back? I looked him dead in the eye and said, Father, before the facts are even established, don't you think jumping straight to physical abuse is inappropriate? Yes, based on absolutely nothing but a single, dubious audio clip. You are convinced I am a bully at school? Did you even bother to go to the school and investigate? Did you call the teacher to verify any of this? My father wrenched his hand away from my grip, his face shifting from pale to a dark, humiliated red, until he finally turned to Mother. Mother simply clutched Liang Jiming, offering him hollow comfort. Seeing our eyes fixed on her, she was suddenly at a loss for words. We will put this matter on ice for now. In a few days, we are heading to your campus to personally interrogate your teacher and classmates. And do not even dream about bribing them beforehand. Hearing that, a cold, mocking smirk played on my lips. Do not worry about me. You had better ensure that the faculty and students have not been bought off by Liang Jiming to frame me in some twisted conspiracy. With that, I turned my back and headed upstairs without a backward glance, leaving the rest of them frozen in shock. Luo Yuran and my parents were already getting a massive headache over me, while only Liang Jiming remained nestled in Mother's arms, his eyes burning with a venomous glare as he watched me go. This Luo Jinghang he never used to defend himself. He was a doormat who never fought back. What the hell changed today? I took each step up the stairs with a heavy, deliberate pace. The reality had finally set in. I had somehow been reincarnated, sent back years into the past. If I recall correctly, I should be just starting my senior year. Liang Jiming's academic performance was not even close to qualifying for my elite university, yet my parents insisted on throwing a fortune away just to bribe his way into the same college. They even managed to shove him into the exact same class. The college life I had once looked forward to was turned into a living nightmare by Liang Jiming's interference, spreading rumors that I bullied classmates, using our parents to snatch my scholarship slots and even plagiarizing my work for competitions. But the silver lining was that at this point, I was not sick yet, and he had not started the rumors about my gambling addiction, which eventually cost me every ounce of my parents' trust. In this new life, there is zero chance I will let Liang Jiming get his way again. Since heaven has granted me this second shot, I will make every single person who wronged me pay the ultimate price. Step 1. I need to win back my sister. At this moment, Pei Chengge still has 100% faith in me, so I just need to keep things stable with her while staying alert for Yang Jiming's dirty tricks behind the scenes. As for my sister Luo Yuran, compared to our parents, she still harbors a tiny shred of compassion for me. She might even stand up for me once or twice, rare as that may be, but hey, it's better than nothing. But how on earth can I make my sister truly believe in me? Liang Jiming is a master of playing the victim. Therefore, I must appear even more pitiful than he does. Furthermore, I need to have cold, hard evidence in my hands. I lay on my bed with my eyes shut tight, my brain working at a frantic, overclocked speed. I meticulously recalled every excruciating detail, replaying exactly what Liang Jiming did next and what proof he fed to my parents. After obsessing over it, I realized something shocking. Aside from this current slander about me being a school bully, Liang Jiming never actually produced any tangible evidence. It was always based purely on his manipulative words. Yet my parents and sister swallowed every lie as gospel, turning their misplaced rage against me every single time. I could not help but let out a dry, bitter laugh. I was not sure if I should call this a stroke of luck or a tragedy. These were my biological parents and my own sister, yet I could not even earn the most basic level of their trust. Meanwhile, an adopted son with a mouth full of venomous lies possessed the entirety of their love and absolute faith. It is beyond pathetic. I chuckled to myself as the thought spiraled, but the moment I rolled over, I could not stop the tears from escaping and sliding down my face onto the mattress, soaking a large, cold patch on my bedsheets. In the early hours of the morning, I forced myself out of bed before dawn, while the rest of the house was still sound asleep. I made my way to my sister Luo Yuran's bedroom. Luo Yuran had just barely fluttered her eyes open, having not yet mustered the energy to get up when a sudden knock echoed at her door. Frowning, she grabbed her phone to check the time, noting it was barely past 5 a.m. She had planned to get up for her morning workout, but who could possibly be knocking this early? "Come in," she called out, and upon hearing her voice, I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The second she recognized it was me, Luo Yuran's brow furrowed even deeper. "What are you doing here at this hour?" Internally, I rolled my eyes at her coldness, yet I forced myself to walk to her bedside with reddened eyes. "Sister," my voice carried a calculated tremor, calling out to her in a fragile tone. "What is wrong with you? Why are you crying at the crack of dawn?" Seeing my eyes swimming with unshed tears and witnessing my body visibly trembling, a rare flicker of genuine sympathy stirred within Luo Yuran. "I swear I never bullied anyone at school, but it seems like Jiming has completely misunderstood me. Can you please just help me once?" "You say Jiming misunderstood you? How so?" Luo Yuran grabbed my hand and led me to the sofa by the window to sit. She flicked on the main overhead light, extinguishing the dim glow of the bedside lamp. Under the harsh, bright illumination, my look of utter despair was laid bare before her eyes. My entire eye sockets were a raw. Inflamed red, my eyes themselves shot through with broken capillaries. Even my nose was flushed crimson, and on both sides, the skin around my nostrils was chafed from constant wiping, faintly oozing traces of blood. Luo Yuran handed me a wet wipe, letting out a heavy, weary sigh. Her tone softened considerably. "Stop crying first. Now tell me what really happened." I accepted the wipe. Listening to the shift in her voice, a surge of hope hit me. Breaking through her defenses was definitely the right strategic move. I did not bother wiping away the tears. Instead, I blinked my lashes, letting fat teardrops roll down my cheeks. Sobbing, I let out a choked, aggrieved cry. "I do not know who fed those recordings to Jiming, but every single word has been maliciously edited. Sister, those were just my lines from the arts festival when I was rehearsing a play with my classmates. Someone cut out the context and twisted the ending, manipulating it into a narrative of heartless bullying." Stop crying. How could I possibly stop? While my face was a mask of victimhood, my heart was a frozen tundra of cynical laughter. "You will only believe me if I am weeping, won't you, my dear older sister?" Those audio clips, the moment I heard them in my past life, I knew exactly what game was being played. But I was so incredibly foolish back then, thinking I could actually gather the evidence on my own to prove my innocence to my parents. By the time I finally secured the proof, I hid it inside that priceless, multi-million-dollar antique vase, only to be totally outplayed by Liang Jiming in the end. Not only was the evidence I bled for destroyed, but I was framed for harboring malice toward Liang Jiming, accused of intentionally pushing him and shattering that priceless vase. So this time around, I need to secure a powerful ally whom Liang Jiming would not dare to offend as my backing. With a hacker's influence, I will secure the raw proof and send it straight to my parents. You might wonder how exactly I plan to show I am telling the truth. Let me explain. Yuran actually looked at me with a hint of newfound respect. She never expected me to take the initiative, seek her help, or provide a justification she would actually buy. We recorded every single session of our rehearsals specifically so we could review our performances afterward. The drama club president has the master copies, but I am terrified that the person trying to sabotage me. Luo Yuran furrowed her brows, lost in deep thought. She caught my drift immediately. Setting aside the identity of the mastermind behind this trap, the mere fact that I spoke with such conviction showed that beneath the surface, there were secrets she had been kept in the dark about. Furthermore, whoever engineered a scheme this vile must have an intimate understanding of both me and Liang Jimin, knowing the exact friction between us. Otherwise, they wouldn't have handed him that recording. Even though I have seemed increasingly rebellious over these last few years, turning arrogant and completely unbridled, at the end of the day, a member of the prestigious Liu family is not someone a mere outsider gets to lecture. She stared intently right at me, her eyes narrowing into sharp slits. Understood, I will have someone investigate this thoroughly. Now, go get ready for school, and for heaven's sake, stop crying. Thank you, sister, I replied with a submissive bow. I obediently wiped my tears and suppressed my sobbing, turning to exit Luo Yuran's private quarters. Nobody saw my mask slip the moment my back was turned. That look of pathetic desperation vanished instantly. In its place was an expression of icy indifference and cold logic, without a single trace of the snot-nosed weakling who was just trembling with anxiety. The moment I arrived on campus, my first priority was contacting our drama club president. Following the breadcrumbs of my past life's memories, I effortlessly secured the unedited, original audio files. As a finishing touch, I immediately duplicated the evidence and shot an email straight to my dear sister. By the time I finished my preparations and headed to class, the studio was already packed with students, leaving only a single vacancy tucked in the corner. I remembered that stool was a complete death trap with its legs already loose and wobbling dangerously, ready to splinter apart at the slightest bit of pressure. In my previous life, I sat down without a second thought, only to be sent crashing the instant I touched the seat. The jagged nails at the joints ripped deep into my calf, leaving a gruesome gash. That was exactly how I got the scar that haunted my leg. As I stepped through the door, the professor scanned the room briefly before gesturing toward that cursed corner. Jinghang, yes, you're cutting it a bit close today. There's one spot left over there. Hurry up and take it. I gave a subtle nod and walked over with an obedient expression. As I brushed past Liang Jaming, I caught the smug, triumphant smirk plastered on his face and felt nothing but utter disdain for his petty games. Reaching my designated spot, I stood beside the stool, pretended to organize my scrolls, then swung my heavy backpack down onto the seat with a thud. The fragile stool instantly gave way, collapsing into a heap. The loud crash echoed through the room, drawing every single pair of eyes in the studio toward me. I let out a startled yelp and leaped back, turning a wide-eyed, aggrieved look toward the professor. I am so sorry, Professor, I stammered, looking mortified. I guess my backpack was just too heavy. The professor walked over, looking completely bewildered, wondering how on earth a mere bag could possibly pulverize a piece of furniture. Upon closer inspection, however, the truth was revealed. Someone had intentionally loosened the screws at the joints. In fact, every single connection point had been tampered with, leaving only the sharp tips of the nails holding it together. No wonder it disintegrated under the weight of a bag. The professor's expression darkened instantly. Regardless of who played this malicious prank, their intentions were clearly sinister and cruel. But with dozens of students watching, he kept his temper in check. He offered me a few comforting words and provided a new stool before resuming the lecture. The students around me whispered about how incredibly lucky I was, amazed that my backpack had taken the hit. Otherwise, with all those exposed nails, sitting down unknowingly would have sent me to the emergency room. I played along, feigning shock at my incredible luck. That scared me to death. I am shaking. Only Liang Jaming remained chillingly indifferent, watching from a distance as I was seemingly embraced by Lady Luck. His face was a mask of cold neutrality, yet his eyes betrayed a flicker of resentment and pure venom. Luo Yuran had conducted a secret investigation into Liang Jimin and every single person in my social circle, but she had come up completely empty-handed. She was beginning to suspect I was just spouting nonsense when she suddenly received my email notification. The body of the message was completely blank, containing only a single attachment. She clicked the file open, and my voice echoed out with crystal clarity. It was exactly as I had claimed. Those words were nothing more than rehearsal lines for a play. A ping from WeChat interrupted her thoughts. I had sent her a message. Sister, did you see the email I sent? Luo Yuran stared at our chat interface, realizing our last interaction was over a year ago. I had asked if she would drop me off at college, and she had not even bothered to reply. Her brows knitted slightly, a strange, unsettling emotion fluttering in her chest. Since when had she become so incredibly neglectful of me? I saw it. I believe you for now. Just focus on your studies, and try to get along with Zemming. We will talk when you get home. I stared at her response, my expression shifting into something complex. Even now, she could not resist mentioning Liang Jaming. She protected him with such fierce devotion, as if she were his biological sister instead of mine. The faint glimmer of hope and joy in my eyes instantly froze into a mask of indifference. Truly, I should know better than to expect anything from anyone. It was finally the weekend, and I returned home earlier than usual. After a long period of careful calculation, I chose a popular streaming platform, and registered an account under the ID, The Prophet. I hit the Go Live button, titling the stream, A Story of Foresight. As I launched the broadcast and stared at the all-too-familiar interface, I vividly remembered the last time I went live, the moment I leaped off that roof. Back then, the chat was a toxic cesspool of insults. Everyone was convinced I was just putting on a pathetic show, desperately fishing for sympathy and clout. They branded me a degenerate gambler and a fraud. It wasn't until I produced the proof and prepared to leap that the comments finally shifted into a collective gasp of horror. This time, I am assuming a completely different identity. I will use the eyes of every netizen as my witness and my evidence to strip away Liang Jiaming's mask once and for all. I will force this entire world to apologize to me. The Prophet? What is that supposed to mean? Is this some kind of werewolf game stream? Wait, why is this in the lifestyle section then? Shouldn't a gamer be in the gaming category? Is the host a noob? He probably clicked the wrong tag. I adjusted the camera and finally stepped into the frame. The chat immediately exploded with shock. Wait, hold up, this host is actually fine as hell. Hey, pretty boy, are we playing werewolf today? I glanced at the scrolling comments and let out a soft chuckle. I'm not here for werewolf, I whispered smoothly. I then pulled out a notebook I had meticulously prepared and held it up for the audience to see. It was a completely blank slate. I addressed the camera. Starting from today, I will write down a single prophecy every single day. They will be about my own life. Some might manifest by tomorrow, others in the near future. The exact timing remains a mystery for now, but it could be a tragedy. If it's good, celebrate with me. If it's bad, I will need you all to help me find a way out. After speaking, I summarized those words into a simple set of rules and pinned them to the top of the stream. Viewers were few, but the numbers were growing, clearly hooked by the mystery. Anticipation filled the chat. Damn, this is intense. The prophet concept is crazy. Is this guy for real? A legit psychic? No way, that's impossible. Just another wannabe influencer following a script. Scripted or not, this feels fresh. I'm digging the vibe. I flashed a knowing smile at the lens and flipped open the first page. Let's begin. Now, I'll write the very first prophecy. With that, I adjusted the camera until it focused squarely on the notebook. I picked up my pen and wrote. Tomorrow is July 12th. The morning weather will be absolutely glorious, but a torrential downpour will strike at noon. Tomorrow is my younger brother's birthday. My parents will prepare a massive seafood feast, including sashimi, and they will gift him a brand new apartment. My sister will present him with a professional camera. Father, mother, and sister have all forgotten that I am deathly allergic to seafood. Therefore, tomorrow I'll be the one getting scolded. His handwriting is actually pretty fire. Wait, is this a prophecy? This seems like stuff anyone could easily guess. Exactly. What the parents and sister are giving the brother as gifts anyone could predict that just by paying attention. Or maybe you guys just discussed it all beforehand? I smirked at the live chat. I'm not finished yet. The pen in my hand didn't stop as I continued writing. I have also prepared a gift, but my brother will claim that he wants one of my paintings as his present instead. That specific painting is my entry for a major competition. I won't give it to him. What should I do? Having finished, I snapped the notebook shut and swiveled the camera back toward me. I looked directly at the viewers. Alright, that's today's prophecy. Tomorrow is indeed my brother's birthday, so there is a high chance this will all unfold then. Please, help me brainstorm. How can I reject my brother's innocent request? I paused for a moment before adding an extra condition. Also, if I give in, my parents and sister will definitely demand that I grant my brother's every wish. So, please rule out using them to say no. Think of some creative solutions for me. The birthday banquet will likely be during dinner, so I will start streaming tomorrow at 4 p.m. and keep it running until the celebration ends. The chat erupted in a frenzy once more. Damn, this is getting spicy. I'm so down for this. Wait, are you actually streaming family dinner? Isn't it sketchy to do that without their consent? Spotting that comment, I took a second to think it over and realized they had a point. I began negotiating with my viewers. So, what do you guys think? How can I keep things completely authentic without actually exposing their faces on camera? Wait, I've got it. When the stream starts, I will be in my room. The moment I step out, I'll kill the video but keep the audio live. Is that an acceptable compromise for everyone? Totally. That works for us, let's give it a shot. I flashed a brilliant, calculated smile. Then we'll do this for now. The camera stays on while I'm in my room, but goes dark the second I leave, keeping only the audio active. That's all for today's broadcast, see you all tomorrow afternoon. With that final sign-off, I cut the stream and went offline. In that exact moment, a sudden knock echoed against my door. It was Lauren, standing there and eyeing me with a deepening frown. Who are you talking to on the phone? She asked suspiciously. Pei Qinghe even called me just to find you, claiming your line has been busy for ages. I glanced down at my screen. Sure enough, 3 missed calls, all from Pei Qinghe. My bad, I lied smoothly. I was in the zone painting with airplane mode on, so I didn't hear a thing. I'll call her back right now. I turned back into the sanctuary of my room and dialed Pei Qinghe's number. The call connected almost instantly, and her gentle, soothing voice drifted through the line. It's me. What were you so busy with? Why didn't you pick up? Just working on a piece, I said with a light chuckle. Left it on airplane mode. What's up with you? This was my very first contact with her since my rebirth. I couldn't quite put my finger on what I felt anymore. The love had evaporated, the longing had vanished, yet I couldn't even find the energy to hate her. Perhaps there is no greater sorrow than a heart turned to ash. Having already crossed death's threshold once, I felt utterly indifferent to everything. I no longer craved her affection, and naturally, the hatred faded too. "I miss you so much," she murmured softly. When I failed to give her a response, she couldn't resist repeating herself. "Jinghang, I said I really miss you." I curled my lips into a hollow smirk. A cold gesture reaching only the corners of my mouth, never touching my soulless eyes. My cheeks didn't even twitch. "I heard you." On the other end, she knitted her brows in confusion. Why did I feel like a completely different person? Was I throwing a tantrum? In the past, I was always so clingy and dependent on her, venting my daily miseries into her ear, especially about my family's blatant unfairness. Even though she believed she knew the truth from Yuran and Jimin's version, which painted a totally different picture, she never called me out on my supposed lies. When she whispered sweet nothings to me, I used to turn into a blushing mess. But my current reaction was far from that. I was acting as cold and detached as a total stranger. "Jinghang, what's going on with you?" I let a long, heavy silence hang between us before suddenly asking. "Jinghei, you know Liang Jimin is in love with you, don't you?" She was visibly stunned by the question. After a long pause, she finally uttered a faint, "Yes." I burst into a sudden, bitter laugh. So it had already started this early. Liang Jimin was already driving a wedge between us. No wonder in my previous life, when she returned, she treated me with such icy indifference. She had stopped trusting me a long time ago. In her eyes, the version of me she saw was identical to the villain my parents perceived. What a joke. I actually placed all my faith in her, believing she was the only one who truly had my back. It turns out she was just like the rest of them. I was just too blind to see through the facade. "Jinghei, let's break up." After another agonizingly long silence, I finally steeled my heart and spat out those words. She instantly spiraled into a panic. She likely didn't even realize it herself, but the hand clutching her phone was trembling violently. "No, Jinghang, you can't be serious. Why? Why do you want to end things? I don't accept this." I remained completely tight-lipped. No matter how desperately she interrogated me, I met every question with a wall of absolute silence. It wasn't until her voice finally faded out, leaving us in a void of endless, heavy silence, that I finally spoke. "Jinghei, deep down, you know exactly why. You stopped believing in me a long time ago, didn't you? So let's just end this. We're done." Actually, I had been wavering on whether to break it off, but after being reborn, the truth finally became crystal clear. I finally understood why she treated me with such soul-crushing indifference upon her return in my past life, why someone like her, who knew damn well that those scandals had nothing to do with me, still stood by while my parents and sister conspired to drag me step by step into the abyss. She chose the coward's path of silence. Even after learning I was fighting pancreatic cancer and had come back to the country, she didn't lift a finger to get me medical help. She just stood by as the cancer cells metastasized. She watched me slowly wither away toward my inevitable death, never once asking a single question about my health. This brutal betrayal happened because Pei Qinghei was completely brainwashed by Liang Jimin's lies. She was no different from my cold parents or my sister. Not a single shred of difference. Pei Qinghei did not even try to answer me. After a long, stunned silence, she suddenly blurted out, "I am coming home as soon as possible. We need to settle this face to face." I just let out a hollow, empty laugh and hung up on her immediately. Looking around the familiar walls of my room, remembering every face from my past life and the horror of my death, I suddenly felt a bone-chilling cold radiating from the room. It felt like being trapped inside a frozen, desolate tomb, an icy grip squeezing the life right out of my heart. In my past life, I spent every waking moment wondering what I did wrong to end up so utterly abandoned and hated by everyone, betrayed and believed by nobody. But the second I realized I had been given another chance at life, I never committed those sins, even when everyone around me tried to break my spirit. I never once did anything to betray their trust. Yet somehow, I ended up being wrong about absolutely everything. I was wrong to trust my family, wrong to believe in my lover. I was weak, bullied, and stepped on, yet too terrified to fight back. A stubborn fool blindly running down a path of total self-destruction, crashing into every dead end without ever looking back. Maybe that tragic end in my previous life was exactly what I deserved. I squeezed my eyes shut, refusing to open them for a long, painful moment. It was my own fault. This afternoon, with 4 p.m. fast approaching, I got my notebook ready, fine-tuned the camera angles for the stream, and prepared to go live. At exactly 4 p.m., I launched the broadcast. The chat exploded instantly, a tidal wave of messages filling the screen. Viewership had spiked compared to yesterday. One comment read, "Wow, perfectly on time. This punctuality alone makes me a fan of this streamer." Another asked, "So, what is the agenda for today? Is it finally time to verify that wild prophecy?" I flipped open my notebook, turning to the page where I had scribbled yesterday's prediction. Holding my pen, I addressed the chat. As I mentioned yesterday, I was hoping you could all help me find a way out of this. Let's hear your thoughts first. The chat instantly devolved into a chaotic frenzy. Me first. Pick me. I think you should just tell your brother that the painting is already submitted for the competition. Surely he wouldn't demand it then, right? Another wrote, my advice? Give it to him but hide your own signature deep inside the brushwork. Some asked, wait, what painting? While others spammed, if it were me, I would destroy it before letting him touch it. Why not offer to paint him something else entirely? I scrolled slowly through the wave of comments, taking in their suggestions while explaining. I already told him it is a competition entry. The only reason he wants it is to steal credit for the show. The chat went wild. Holy crap, that is straight up cheating. Another agreed, yeah, burn it to the ground before giving it to that brat. Seeing that exact comment flash across the screen, I let out a relaxed, knowing smile. In this second life, I had stopped caring about empty titles. Whether I became famous or remained in the shadows did not matter. But I would never let Luo Jinghang build his reputation on my hard work. After thinking for a moment, I addressed the chat directly. I ask you all to be my witnesses. My connection to this masterpiece ends right here. I stepped onto the balcony, grabbed the beautifully framed painting, and adjusted the camera to focus squarely on the canvas. The viewers watched as I carefully pulled apart the outer frame, leaving only the raw, exposed canvas. Amid a flood of heartbroken comments and online screams, I grabbed thick black ink and, stroke by stroke, completely ruined my own creation. The chat went into an absolute frenzy. Oh my god, why did I not realize it was this beautiful before he destroyed it? No wonder he would rather trash it than hand it to that brat. This is legit master-level art. This hurts to watch. It is actually painful. If I am this devastated just looking at it, the streamer's heart must be bleeding. Wait, the prediction has not even happened yet. What if his brother does not even ask for the painting? Damn, you just pointed out the ultimate plot twist. If the kid does not want it, he ruined it for nothing. That means the host is going to have a major breakdown. I looked at the scrolling chat and shook my head. No, they would definitely force my hand. Destroying this piece was gut-wrenching. I spent nearly an entire month perfecting it in my previous life. It actually won the first place prize, except the name on the trophy wasn't Luo Jinghang. By stealing this artwork, Luo Jinghang became an overnight sensation, hailed by everyone as a young prodigy in the art world. But in this life, I refuse to let him live that fantasy. I would rather see it in ashes than let him claim it as his own. I recorded the entire destruction on video, just in case Luo Jinghang tries to deny it later. After saving the clip, I saw that an hour had already slipped away. Dinner time was rapidly approaching. Clutching my ruined masterpiece in my phone, I made my way down to the first floor. The camera feed was cut, leaving the screen completely dark, but the chat was still blowing up with anticipation. The moment of truth is finally here. And holy crap, this is it. Looking around the dining hall, a sudden realization hit me. I think I have just discovered a brilliant way to keep the camera rolling. I gripped my phone and headed for the table. Our family seating is strictly fixed. Today, to celebrate Luo Jinghang's big day, 2 beautiful baskets of fresh flowers sat as centerpieces. I switched to the front-facing lens, carefully angled the shot toward my seat, and draped layers of thin black gauze over the phone before nesting it deep inside the flowers. This way, my family won't notice the phone, and viewers won't see their faces. At most, they will only see dark silhouettes to distinguish their general builds and gender. Just as I finished the setup, Luo Jinghang arrived arm in arm with our parents, with Luo Jinghang following closely behind. Seeing me already seated at the table, my mother actually flashed a rare, faint smile. Since everyone is present, tell the staff to start serving the meal. Once we were all settled, my father gave the order. Yes, master, the butler replied with a respectful bow before heading to the kitchen. A few moments later, dish after dish emerged in a steady stream as the butler announced each gourmet selection. The live chat slowly began to lose its mind, though nobody at our table could see the chaos. Oh my god, it is all seafood. But didn't he say he has a deadly allergy? Or maybe there are more dishes coming. Even if it is the younger son's birthday, they wouldn't just let the eldest son starve, right? But then, no, wait, listening to the sounds, that seems to be all. There really isn't a single thing besides seafood. Is this some kind of sick abuse? I had no time to monitor the scrolling comments, nor did I care what viewers were typing. Even though I knew this outcome was inevitable, seeing the cold reality laid out on the table still made my eyes sting with involuntary tears. My parents were obsessively piling food onto Luo Jinghang's plate, and my sister was smiling, urging him to eat his fill. I sat there like a ghost at the feast, my plate and bowl remaining pathetically empty. I couldn't touch a single dish on that table, yet nobody even bothered to spare me a glance. I felt like a total outsider, completely excluded from the warmth of their perfect family. In our quiet 4-person world, My mother noticed I hadn't touched my chopsticks. Her brow furrowed into a harsh scowl, her voice sharp with grating disdain. Are you just waiting for someone to feed you? Or is this massive feast not fancy enough for your palate? I have no idea who you're trying to impress with this act. Fighting back tears at her venomous words, I replied coldly, you might choose to forget my seafood allergy, but I don't have that luxury. I dropped my chopsticks, folded my arms, and watched this absolute farce unfold with an icy glare. They just ignored me. As the feast wound down, it was finally time for the gift-giving. Mother smiled, saying, Zemming, this diamond-encrusted antique watch is from your father and me. My parents pulled out the heirloom for Liang Zemming. He accepted it with ecstatic joy, but upon opening it, he feigned a conflicted look. But wasn't this grandmother's inheritance for brother? Mother shot a cold glare at me as I sat in silence. Her voice turned stern. He's a rebellious brat who gets more disgraceful by the day. He doesn't deserve it. Why should he get anything? You keep it safe, and don't you dare lose it. Listening to their exchange, my stream's live chat flooded with collective sighs and groans. One viewer wrote, the favoritism here is sickening, no cap. Another asked, is the host adopted? Others chimed in, this treatment is not giving biological, and guys, chill, have some sympathy. The host is going through it. But wait, everything he predicted is coming true. Just then, a woman's voice chimed in. Zemming, here's that high-end camera you wanted for so long. Consider it an early graduation gift from your big sister. It was Luo Jinghang, presenting a stunning, top-tier professional camera. In reality, Liang Zemming didn't know the first thing about photography, but they just wanted to shower him with the absolute best. Thank you so much, sister. Liang Zemming beamed, clutching the gift before pivoting his gaze toward me. And what about brother's gift? At those words, every eye in the room locked onto me. I let out a weary sigh and reached down to retrieve the gift box I'd prepared. Inside was a delicate wood carving worth a small fortune. But the moment Liang Zemming took it, he scoffed. Compared to what sis and mom and dad gave me, brother's gift feels a little underwhelming, you see? Sensing the burning, judgmental glares from the other three, I sighed again. What must come will come. So, what is it you actually want? What I really want, brother, is for you to give me your entry for the art competition. The second Liang Zemming finished, my live chat erupted in horror. Are we sure they didn't script this drama? Holy crap, it's actually happening. I threw my head back and erupted into manic, completely unstoppable laughter. I only stopped when Luo Jinghang's scowl deepened. Fine, it's yours. Since you want it so badly, take it. I picked up the object at my feet, shrouded in heavy black cloth, and shoved it toward Liang Zemming. He was stunned by my sudden easy compliance. Wait, for real? He asked, eyes sparkling with greed. Thank you so much, brother. But the instant he whipped off the black cloth, his face fell. Consumed with rage, he screamed at the top of his lungs, Luo Jinghang. How dare you play me like this? You dare to lie right in front of our parents? Me? I maintained my cold, effortless indifference, not even flinching at his outburst. My voice remained lazy and dismissive. I didn't lie to you. As I spoke, I handed my phone with the destruction video to Zemming. With a smirk, I added, that's the painting. Don't believe me? See for yourself. Liang Zemming tapped the video in utter disbelief, watching me personally destroy the masterpiece stroke by stroke. With a trembling hand, he pointed at me. I slapped his hand away, a flash of pure madness flickering in my eyes. What? It's my painting. I'd rather destroy it than give it to you. While the three of them rushed to comfort the sobbing Liang Zemming, I discreetly snatched my phone back and retreated to the sanctuary of my room. Not a single soul cared if I was hurting. They only had eyes for Liang Zemming's feelings. It wasn't until my figure completely vanished that Luo Jinghang finally noticed my trembling hands in the video. Staring at my bloodshot, tear-filled eyes, she fell into a deep, silent guilt. Recalling that flicker of pure madness in my gaze, Luo Jinghang felt, for the very first time, that maybe they'd pushed me too far. Back in my room, I stripped the black gauze from my phone. Staring at the chaotic, rapidly scrolling live chat, I chuckled softly. Do you all think this is just a performance? Believe me, I wish more than anyone that this was just an act. But this is my brutal reality. I sat back down at my desk, glanced at the messages on my screen, and began the next prophecy. Today is July 13th. Tomorrow promises to be a spectacular day. My ex-girlfriend is finally coming home. The viewers in the stream were still reeling in shock, many flooding the chat with sympathy for me, disgusted by how my own family treats me like trash. Others were absolutely blasting Liang Zemming's insatiable greed and complete lack of conscience. But ultimately, their words changed nothing. This is my life, after all. They are mere spectators who cannot intervene. Beyond my supporters, there was still a massive segment of the audience convinced this was all prearranged, insisting every dramatic beat was just a scripted play. I didn't bother offering explanations. Time will be the ultimate witness. I pulled out my notebook, flipped to a fresh, clean page, and wrote the second prophecy. Today is July 13th. Tomorrow will be a day of beautiful reunions. My ex-girlfriend is set to return. However, in just a few days, my brother will tell my parents and sister that I'm a gambler. In reality, I've done no such thing. He's spreading vicious lies. How can I possibly prove my innocence and make them believe me? After writing that, I fell into a heavy, prolonged silence. Staring at the ink on that notebook page, I couldn't stop my heart from trembling with dread. From this point forward, I was about to plunge back into the true nightmare of my past life. My parents blindly swallowed Liang Zeming's poison, convinced I had actually spiraled into gambling, branding me a degenerate addict. My family will very quickly move to freeze every single one of my bank accounts. All of my future living expenses will rely on the money I earn from selling art, but that meager income just won't cut it. I must cut this off at the source. I have to rip off Liang Zeming's mask. I snapped back to reality and faced the lens. You all witnessed quite a lot today, I began. Some of you suspect I'm not actually my parents' biological child, but the truth is, I am their flesh and blood, while my younger brother was the one adopted. The chat erupted in total chaos. No way. What kind of parents neglect their own son to spoil an adoptee? Are you sure? Don't tell me you've got it mixed up, host. You should probably double check that. I let out a calm, knowing smile. I didn't bother arguing with the netizens, simply saying with indifference. Actually, my parents' logic isn't that hard to decipher. Perhaps in the beginning they acted this way just to give my brother a sense of security. A child who lost his birth parents arguably needs more affection, right? But through years of bias, favoritism, and constant coddling, they completely lost their sense of basic justice. I just hope they don't live to regret it one day. The chat filled with emotional outpourings, but I didn't join their discussion. I just felt a lingering sense of melancholy. That's when I noticed a comment asking why I had labeled her as my ex-girlfriend. I froze as Pei Qinghe crossed my mind, and a wave of complex emotions washed over me. Pei Qinghe is a total wildcard now. In my previous life, she never returned this early. Back then, our relationship was rock solid, and we had never even had a single argument, let alone a breakup. By pulling the plug so early this time, I have no idea what kind of butterfly effect I have triggered. I only call her my ex because technically we only split up yesterday. I let out a bitter laugh as the chat exploded with wait. What? And I am floored. Why on earth did you break up? Someone wrote. So the host's ex is flying back to the country just to try and win him back? Another said. Alright, fam. I have got my popcorn ready for this drama. I glanced at the screen and replied, it is because she lost faith in me. The love did not just disappear, but without trust as a foundation, there is just no path forward. A viewer chimed in. Man, trust is absolutely everything in a long-distance relationship, especially when you are literally worlds apart. So the host ended things, and now she is flying back to fix them? Someone named Jake typed, not gonna lie, the ex-girlfriend actually sounds like a real one. I let a faint, bitter smirk tug at my lips. Whether she is here to mend things, we will find out soon enough. But my gut says a reconciliation is completely off the table. After scheduling the next stream with my viewers, I ended the broadcast. Honestly, when I decided to start streaming, I had already steeled myself for the fallout. Sharing everything with a live audience and letting them help me navigate this mess was partly about crowdsourcing survival tactics. But more importantly, it was about making them active participants and living witnesses to my evidence. I had been meticulously laying the groundwork for a while, making trips to the bank to secure every record of my income and spending. Under the guise of preserving memories, I captured endless footage of me hanging out with friends, lost in my painting sessions, or even out volunteering for charity work, making sure others filmed me in the thick of it. I remember vividly in my past life when Liang Jimin framed me for a gambling addiction, weaponizing every moment I was not at home or visible at school to fabricate a narrative that I was at the casinos. Back then, I had no proof to back up my explanations, and honestly, no one gave a damn about my side anyway. This time, I have archived every shred of evidence in advance. I recall every single timestamp Liang Jimin used to slander my character in the previous timeline. This time, my defense is completely airtight. I have even accounted for the gaps he did not mention. Whenever I was away from school or home, I made sure a camera was rolling. Technically, this should be more than enough to crush Liang Jimin's pathetic smear campaign, but doing this alone leaves room for a slip-up. Having thousands of eyes helping me watch my back is much better. That morning at 10 a.m. sharp, I finished my chores and went live right on schedule. A crowd of viewers had already been camping out in the lobby, so the moment I went live, the chat was instantly flooded. Man, the host is seriously like clockwork with his timing. And hey, pretty boy, listen up. I pondered for a moment. The absolute best way to dismantle these kinds of lies is to give him a taste of his own medicine. You have to fight fire with fire. Call him out right in front of your parents, a helpful netizen wrote. As long as he cannot produce evidence to prove his innocence, he has zero ground to stand on when accusing you. They quickly jumped in to address the dilemma I had posed yesterday. I nodded with a subtle smirk, acknowledging it as a brilliant tactical move, and scribbled it down in my notebook right under yesterday's entry. Counter strategy, counter slander, an eye for an eye. I glanced at the scrolling comments and smiled. Anything else? The viewership numbers began to climb steadily. Whenever new faces joined the stream, my loyal OG viewers would step up to explain the lore, which honestly saved me a lot of breath. Many started pitching fresh ideas, while others voiced their lingering skepticism. Real talk. If the host is actually a prophet and knew this was coming all along, haven't you already laid down some groundwork? I chuckled, and as a result, I decided to share a glimpse of the preparations I had already made. Many were stunned by my meticulous planning, yet even more people began to suspect this was all just a script. This has to be a scripted drama, right? One asked. Who actually prophesies things and then preps for them? Can you even explain how you see the future? I paused briefly before stating, it is not a script. As for how I see these visions, it is like I was caught in a trance and lived through a dream. In that dream, I experienced every single one of these events firsthand. And upon waking, I found that reality mirrored the dream perfectly. Comments flashed. Okay, that is actually getting pretty creepy, fam. Don't tell me the host actually time traveled? This is starting to give off major isekai vibes. I shrugged nonchalantly at the camera. Whether it was a premonition or time travel, it does not really matter to me anymore. I just need all of you to act as my witnesses. After speaking, I continued. Besides the method I wrote down, does anyone have any other ideas? A comment read, to be honest, I feel like the evidence the host already has is more than enough. For real, he is basically already fully prepped. Another wrote, I just thought of something slightly devious. Curious to see just how devious, the chat urged. Spill it. Spill it. The strategy can be summed up in one word. Act. If your brother claims it is just hearsay and he did not see it himself, you should claim someone is intentionally smearing your name. Beg your family to help look into it, but make sure to tie in their own interests. For example, say this must be an attack on the family, an attempt to sabotage the family business. That is the only way those people will actually take it seriously. But if he claims he saw it with his own eyes, you act shocked and say, how is that possible? Then, drop the evidence showing exactly what you were doing at those specific times. Play the victim and blow the whole situation out of proportion. Do not just say your brother made a mistake. Follow his lead and insist someone is maliciously impersonating you. Go full conspiracy theory, linking it back to the family business again. Insist that you absolutely must call the police. That is the only way to totally debunk the rumors and serve as a terrifying warning to your brother, so he never dares to fabricate lies like this ever again. The chat exploded. Holy crap, this is absolute gold, and I am begging this netizen to share half their brain cells with me. The author replied, honestly, I only learned this after being slandered back when I was working in the corporate world. It is just experience talking. I thought it was a brilliant plan as well, so I picked up my pen and noted it down. While we were chatting, I suddenly heard a knock at the door. I gave my viewers a quick heads up and promptly disabled the camera feed. I stood up to open the door, and standing there was none other than the newly returned Pei Qinghe, dressed exquisitely. She was as stunningly beautiful as ever. I froze for a split second before asking, you are back already? Did you need something from me? Pei Qinghe's brow furrowed slightly. I really had changed far too much. Even that lingering spark of hope usually, in my eyes had vanished, leaving behind nothing but a void of cold indifference. Why? Jinghang, do you really not want me back? She probably never expected that after traveling thousands of miles just to see me, she would receive such a frigid, lukewarm welcome. Our relationship had been a lifelong journey, evolving from childhood sweethearts to being officially engaged. We were just waiting for my graduation to hold the wedding. Yet at this finish line, I was the one calling it quits. I stepped aside to let her in, and we both sat down on the sofa by the bed. Qinghe, you know Jimin is infatuated with you, so surely you have heard quite a lot of his opinions about me, haven't you? Tell me, why did you never mention any of it to me? I locked eyes with Pei Qinghe, staring her down relentlessly. I watched as her brows slowly knitted together, forming a deep, troubled crease on her forehead. After a long pause, Pei Qinghe spoke in her typically assertive tone. Jimin's crush on me, does that even matter? You are the one I love. As for the things he said, he definitely must have told you that I have changed for the worse lately, spewing all sorts of venomous lies about me. And you actually believed him, didn't you? Pei Qinghe stared at me intensely, suddenly reaching to grab my hand, but I recoiled. For a second, annoyance flashed in her eyes, quickly replaced by a wave of pure panic. An overwhelming surge of panic. Yes, he told me things and I believed them, but so what? No matter what you've become, you are still my fiancé. Besides, those stories are just petty tricks born from sibling rivalry. They change nothing between us. Even if those accusations never happened, even if everything he is enjoying right now was supposed to be mine, You honestly do not care about the truth at all, do you? Hearing Pei Qinghei's dismissive excuse, I could not stop myself from raising my voice in angry protest. Her nonchalant attitude absolutely infuriated me. It turns out who I actually am never mattered to her. That is not it, Jinghang, listen to me. I know you, she pleaded. You feel wronged and mistreated. That is exactly why I want to marry you as soon as possible. That way, you will never suffer in this house again. Isn't that good? No, it is not. If I did not do those things, then I did not do them. I refuse to accept guilt just because everyone claims I am the villain. Furthermore, our relationship is dead. Do not bother coming to find me ever again. With that, I shoved Pei Qinghei out of the room and slammed the door in her face. I tuned out the noise as she frantically pounded on the wood. Meanwhile, the live chat was already in an absolute uproar. Just as I was about to address my viewers, my sister's voice echoed from the hallway. Jinghang, open this door immediately. Did our family upbringing teach you to lock guests out like some delinquent? I exhaled a weary sigh and checked the clock. It was already high noon. She was likely here to drag us down for lunch. I quickly packed up my gear, grabbing my iPad loaded with all the video evidence I had meticulously gathered. I also snatched a small pouch from my nightstand, stuffed to the brim with essentials. Finally, I slipped the phone, still streaming live, into my pocket and whispered under my breath. The show begins. I yanked the door open, confronting the two women in the hall. One was the woman I once loved most in the world, and the other was my own biological sister. Now, both glared at me with undisguised displeasure. Seeing me finally emerge, Luo Jinghang knit her brows and hissed. Even as a couple, you should communicate like adults when there is an issue. But locking Qinghei out without a single word? What is wrong with you? I did not even bother defending myself. I just gave her a cold, indifferent glance and murmured, "We are not a couple anymore." I ended it. I brushed past them and headed downstairs, ignoring Luo Jinghang's stunned, wide-eyed expression and Pei Qinghei's suddenly deathly pale face. Ever since Liang Jiming's birthday fiasco, I realized that keeping floral arrangements on the table was a brilliant move. I had instructed the staff to keep the centerpieces exactly as they were, merely swapping out wilting blooms for fresh ones. Perhaps because such a request seemed so trivial, or perhaps Mother simply decided the table looked more elegant this way and silently consented. This made it effortless for me to conceal my streaming gear. I headed downstairs early, specifically to secure the perfect vantage point for my phone. After tucking the device into its usual hiding spot, I sat in absolute silence, keeping my lips sealed. I waited patiently for the rest of the players to arrive. A few minutes ticked by. Only Mother and Liang Jiaming had yet to appear. Luo Jinghang led Pei Qinghei to the seat right next to mine, ordering me to play the proper host before taking her own designated place. Let us begin the meal. Xiao Pei, it has been too long. Tell me if the food is to your liking. Thank you, Uncle Luo. She opened her mouth to say more, but was cut off by Mother's thunderous, enraged scream. Luo Jinghang, you ungrateful, brainless idiot. How dare you throw your life away on gambling? As those venomous words hit my ears, I kept my head down and smirked. Right on cue, the script is finally starting. Mother stormed toward me in a blur of motion, glaring with a gaze full of murderous fury. When she saw me face her with total indifference, her rage boiled over completely. She raised her hand and delivered a brutal slap, cracking it violently across my face. The savage blow, fueled by raw power and speed, left no one in the room time to blink. I did not even have a split second to dodge before the impact sent my whole body reeling. My cheek instantly flared up, turning swollen and red, as the metallic, nauseating taste of blood filled my mouth. Coughing raggedly, I snatched a tissue to cover my lips as a splash of crimson stained my hand. Only then did the others snap out of their trance. Pei Qinghei rushed forward to steady me, desperately checking my injury while frantically asking if I was okay. Father and Luo Jinghang finally shook off their shock. One rushed to Mother's side, demanding to know the cause, while the other stepped forward with Liang Jiaming. He clearly had not anticipated that Mother's temper would escalate to physical violence. For a brief moment, he stood there, looking completely paralyzed with fake terror. Luo Jinghang had to physically pull him before he snapped out of it. He stared at me while I was being held by Pei Qinghei, his face a chaotic whirlpool of conflicting emotions. Mother then proceeded to repeat the venomous lies Liang Jiaming had just fed her, broadcasting them for everyone to hear. At his classmate's birthday bash, someone spotted the antique watch I had given Jiaming. Apparently, that witness was some degenerate, rich playboy who practically lives in underground gambling dens. Upon seeing Jiaming's luxury timepiece, he supposedly asked what his connection to me was. Under Jiaming's persistent questioning, the truth came out that I had allegedly spiraled into a gambling addiction. He even showed a photo, boasting that a single watch from my collection was worth millions, so I would never run out of chips. Father's brow furrowed deeper as he absorbed the story. The moment the words left her mouth, a deafening bang echoed. He slammed his palm onto the dining table with violent force, followed by a thunderous, sky-shaking roar of fury. His finger trembled as he pointed it directly at me. You absolute disgrace of a human being. Where did you throw the dignity of our family name? A university student sneaking out to gamble and ruining our reputation. Get on your knees right now. I actually had to fight the urge to burst out laughing. I gently pushed Pei Qinghe aside, wiped the smear of fresh blood from the corner of my mouth, and fixed my intense gaze on Liang Jiaming. In my previous life, at this exact moment, I had been sulking in my room because of Jiaming's birthday, refusing to come down for dinner out of spite. I had no idea his transparent hole-riddled frame-up was actually this pathetic. A single photo of a $10 million watch and a casino-dwelling rich kid. It was beyond laughable. I straightened my posture, lifted my chin, and met my parents' murderous glares with a faint, chilling smile. I gestured toward the empty chairs, inviting them. Mom, Dad. I then turned to my sister, Luo Yiran. Please sit. This conversation is going to take a very long time. Everyone should get comfortable, standing is exhausting. Luo Yiran's brow twitched, an eerie, unsettling thought flashing through her mind. She cast a suspicious, flickering glance at Liang Jiaming before silently moving to her chair and taking a seat. My parents followed suit, settling in with faces contorted by lingering fury. Mother spoke through gritted teeth. Fine, fine. I will sit here and see exactly how you plan to lie your way out. Once everyone was firmly in position, I rubbed my temples and locked my gaze onto Liang Jiaming, a dangerous, sharp glint slowly surfacing in my eyes. My voice was ice cold. Liang Jiaming, the last time you accused me of bullying your classmates? Didn't I warn you, clear as day, that this was your final warning? I offered you an escape, but you were too pathetic to take it. Since you didn't value that mercy, don't blame me for being ruthless now. Liang Jiaming stared back at me, a sudden wave of dread flashing through his eyes. Yet, he still clung to that mask of tearful, innocent victimhood. Fake tears started welling up as he looked toward our parents, his shoulders trembling. Without even speaking a word, he had already locked in their unconditional, blind support. Father's voice boomed, heavy and threatening. Own up to your own sins. How dare you try to intimidate Jiaming right in front of us? It seems you are practically begging for a harsher lesson. Did your mother's slap earlier fail to wake you up? I let out a bitter, quiet laugh and closed my eyes, mapping out exactly how to tear down Jiaming's fake facade, piece by agonizing piece. I searched for the perfect opening to strike. After a minute of heavy, suffocating silence, I opened my eyes to face my parents and Jiaming. This time, every bit of hurt and lingering hope had vanished from my eyes. All that remained was a cold, empty void. I spoke up, instantly shattering the silence. Jiaming claims that at this birthday party, he met some rich kid who frequents underground casinos. Putting aside whether this guy even exists, why would a classmate's birthday party have a degenerate gambler on the guest list? To invite someone like that to a private party, what kind of crowd are you hanging out with? Is your classmate a secret gambler too? And what about you? Are you being dragged into those gambling dens with them? Jiaming was completely blindsided by my sudden, sharp questions, and his calm act immediately began to crack. He was totally caught off guard, fumbling for an answer. With no way out, he retreated back into his pathetic victim act, whimpering, I didn't. Mother snapped with a sharp, low growl. We know exactly what kind of boy he is. His character is spotless. Don't you dare slander your brother. She gently patted Jiaming's back to soothe him. Father, however, hummed in deep thought. But his point makes sense, Father muttered. Jiaming, you need to stay away from that classmate from now on. Jiaming nodded submissively, saying, I understand, Dad. I let out a quiet scoff of pure disdain. So, based purely on Jiaming's baseless words, I'm the one who gets hit? I didn't even get a second to defend myself, yet simply asking a logical question based on his story is branded as slander by this family. Honestly, I'm done wasting my breath on these ridiculous double standards. I paused for a beat before driving my next point home. Secondly, about that photo of the watch. Jiaming, when you were busy cooking up this little fantasy, couldn't you have at least double-checked your facts? I flashed a cold, mocking smile before turning my gaze toward my parents and sister. And when you decided to hand over that heirloom, how did you fail to check what that watch was actually worth? The second those words left my mouth, the entire room went dead silent. Father's voice boomed with authority. What is that supposed to mean? I gently touched my swollen, throbbing cheek, the sharp sting forcing a grimace onto my face. When I looked back at them, my eyes had turned ice cold. Tell me, did Grandma seriously never mention to any of you that the watch is nothing but a cheap fake? I still remember it clearly. When I was a kid, Mom, Dad, and my sister all doted on me, but the only one who truly loved me was Grandma. I often saw her sighing, staring at that watch. I figured the watch was making her sad, so I begged her to just give it to me, hoping it would make her smile again. Grandma was so charmed by my childish whining that she hugged me close and shared the real story behind that jeweled timepiece. It was originally a token of love she gave to Grandpa. Later, Right when she was pregnant with father, Grandpa fell critically ill. As a pregnant woman, she couldn't run the business alone. Corporate vultures moved in, swallowing up all their assets until nothing was left. Meanwhile, Grandpa's escalating medical bills demanded a fortune. Back in those desperate times, medicine wasn't advanced like it is today. Even with treatment, survival was never guaranteed. Knowing this, and with their savings dry, Grandpa chose to end his own life to protect her and the unborn baby. But Grandma refused to give up on him. She took that watch straight to a pawn shop. In those days, that watch was a priceless masterpiece. Back then, diamonds weren't even popular yet. The centerpiece was the real treasure, a flawless, pure, legendary emerald. It was worth an absolute fortune. But even with the money, Grandpa passed away when the surgery failed. Once Grandma finished handling the funeral, she tried to buy the watch back. But a foreign collector had already snatched it up, and it vanished forever. Relying purely on her memory, Grandma painstakingly drew the design of that watch, demanding a perfect replica. She rebuilt the frame, but she could never find an emerald of that same incredible quality. Years later, using her remaining savings, she built the family business into a massive empire. As the company grew, she searched the globe for the original watch, but her efforts were useless. In the end, she could only find a natural green agate to mimic the original emerald, placing it into the replica's frame. When it was finished, even Grandma was shocked by how uncanny the resemblance was. It was beautiful, of course, but lacked any real monetary value. It was just a sentimental keepsake. So you see, that watch was a symbol of her love, not some multi-million-dollar treasure. She left it to me hoping that one day, I would be the one to track down the original for her. Watching my family's faces twist in absolute shock, a sudden lump formed in my throat. I miss Grandma so much. If she were still here, seeing me bullied like this would break her heart. Zemming's face turned pale. He never expected such a massive twist to be hidden in that old heirloom. I stared at Zemming's frantic, sweating face and let out a cold, faint smile. I knew the watch was a fake from day one. Why on earth would I use it to brag or show off? Zemming, you've really outdone yourself. You walked right into my trap. Zemming blinked rapidly, his eyes welling up with tears. It wasn't me, he whimpered. I swear I didn't mean that. I had no idea about the history behind the watch, but everything else I said was the absolute truth. Seeing his fake tears, Mother's heart melted, and she rushed to wipe them away. There, it's all right. You didn't know. You were just tricked by bad people, no one blames you. Father frowned, opening his mouth to speak, but hesitated and fell silent again. Instead, my sister narrowed her eyes, asking in a low, stern voice. This only proves you didn't use a photo to brag at a casino. It doesn't prove you aren't a gambler. Otherwise, how would a random gambler know your name, Luo Jinghang, and how would they know about your diamond watch? I turned and locked eyes with her for a long, heavy moment. Sister, has it really never crossed your mind that he's framing me? Seeing her scowl deepen further, I let out a bitter, hollow laugh. I whispered. Because the real gambler is someone else entirely. Honestly, the truth didn't hit me at first. But after my rebirth, things started feeling suspicious. Under normal circumstances, nobody would use gambling to ruin a girl's reputation. So why did Zemming choose to drag me through this specific filth without even blinking an eye? More importantly, Mom and Dad were already giving him everything he wanted. In my previous life, my art was already gaining massive recognition right after graduation. A single painting of mine was worth a fortune. As far as Zemming was concerned, there was absolutely no reason to antagonize me or our family. Unless if Liang Jiaming had just played nice with me, it would have been his best move. I would have treated him with absolute kindness, just like my family. But instead, he still chose to play dirty to destroy me. But in my past life, as I died, I exposed his true colors. I am absolutely certain that after my demise, his life became a living hell. Hurting others just to ruin yourself is so pointless. After my rebirth, I made sure to use the freedom I still had as the young master of the Luo family. With influence and capital at my fingertips, I immediately investigated Liang Jiaming. And let me tell you, the results were wild. The results uncovered a massive treasure trove of scandals. Everything Liang Jiaming claimed was actually based on truth. He had simply swapped the main character. The real gambling addict is Liang Jiaming. Terrified of being exposed, he never showed his face, haunting the casinos in a white fox mask while claiming to be a wealthy heir avoiding public attention. What is even more chilling is that Liang Jiaming meticulously copied my signature fashion style. We do share a very similar silhouette, but aside from our facial features, if you look closely, our physiques are quite different. Liang Jiaming is about 2 or 3 centimeters shorter than me, and he is also a bit thinner. Separately, we look like body doubles, but side by side, the difference is obvious. Plus, Jiaming always loved flashy, bright colors, whereas I have always preferred a clean, minimalist aesthetic with low-key, sophisticated designs. Liang Jiaming exploited this detail, copying my go-to outfits to a T while frequenting every major casino behind that mask. No wonder that in my past life, no matter how much I begged my sister to investigate, my family remained completely unmoved, convinced of my addiction. They had actually dug through various sources long ago and found what they thought was solid proof that Luo Jinghang was a gambler. This is exactly why, once I got this data, I immediately started engineering my own ironclad alibis. I began recording every single moment, documenting my exact location and filming every single activity. I had to ensure total coverage, capturing every second spent away from my family's sight or outside the school's security cameras. I could pull it off, of course, but the sheer exhaustion was starting to weigh on me. For Liang Jiaming to drag my name through the mud, a few lies were enough. Yet for me to prove my own innocence, I had to sacrifice endless time, energy, and painstaking effort behind the scenes. Letting out a weary sigh, I slammed the investigation file down on the table. Liang Jiaming, this is a dossier all about you. Care to take a look first? He froze, staring at me in utter disbelief, his heart racing and thumping louder and faster as if it might burst from his chest. He swallowed hard, trying to force a mask of composure as he spoke. What is so interesting about my files? My life is an open book, clean and transparent. There is nothing about me that mom and dad don't know. If I were doing anything wrong, they would have dealt with me by now, right? Haha, wow, what a performance, Jiaming. You had better remember every word. I was genuinely amused by his stubborn, unrepentant stupidity. Chuckling, I pulled out the documents and spread them out one by one for everyone to see. Father's brow furrowed deeply as he scanned the files, while mother barely glanced until her eyes locked onto a specific surveillance photo. She pointed a trembling finger at the image. Luo Jinghang. How dare you frame Jiaming? Look, isn't this clearly you? I sneered. You really are a devoted mother, aren't you? Recognizing me instantly like that. But look closer. Look with your eyes wide open. Is that person in the photo really me? Can you seriously not recognize your precious son, Liang Jiaming, just because he changed his clothes? Careful, Mom. Your blindness might actually hurt your beloved Jiaming's feelings. Mother was temporarily left speechless by my overwhelming evidence, standing there dazed and unable to retort. Luo Yuan, however, frowned as she snatched up the photograph, staring intently at the printed timestamp, and declared, "This isn't Jinghang. On this exact day and time, he was working as a guide at an art exhibition. I know because I was there too." I was stunned. I hadn't even shown my video evidence yet, having never expected my sister to actually speak up for me, let alone attend the very exhibition where I worked. Pei Jinghe, who had been silent until now, suddenly pointed to a specific spot on the boy in the photograph and chimed in. It definitely isn't Jinghang. Jinghang has a very prominent tattoo right here on his lower back. We got them together. Nobody else, besides the two of us, knows about it. It all came rushing back to me. Right before I was supposed to go abroad, I suggested we get matching couple tattoos since we were both born in the year of the dragon. But back then, I thought a dragon design looked too flashy and painful. So after some serious deliberation, the two of us decided to get identical little snakes in the exact same spot. Mine was red, while Pei Jinghe's was deep cyan. A wave of warmth flooded my heart, and I let out a faint, almost foolish smile, though my nose stung with a bitter ache. I pressed on. So, the me in this photo is actually Liang Jiaming in disguise. Before my voice could even fade, Liang Jiaming shrieked, "Impossible. That wasn't me. Your tattoo a little concealer and it is gone." Before anyone could interject, I snapped back, still refusing to confess? Are you? Here is your transaction history, spending records, and proof that you used the credit cards mom and dad gave you to embezzle company funds. Do you realize, Liang Jiaming, that there are no secrets in this world? Every dirty deed you did left a trail. I pulled a thick stack of files from my bag, casting a cold, detached gaze upon my parents. And one more thing, Mom and Dad. Your bias and favoritism, combined with your complete lack of discipline for Liang Jiaming, has already severely jeopardized the company's financial health. If I had not taken the initiative to investigate, nobody would have ever known about this treachery. I paused for a heavy beat, turning to lock eyes with a silent Luo Yuan. After a long moment, I added, "Furthermore, I accidentally stumbled upon a last will and testament drafted by Grandma before she passed away." With those words, I pulled out my phone and dialed an assistant working under my sister, ordering him to bring the documents inside. As he entered, a sudden realization hit everyone at the table. This was the exact person our late grandmother had handpicked to serve by Luo Yuan's side. His name was Lin, but because he was quiet and stayed out of the spotlight, he never truly earned her trust or a promotion. Yet, I vividly remember that in my past life, before I jumped, he was the only soul who showed me any kindness. The only assistant who did not mock or ridicule my existence to please the bosses. That is why I entrusted my final letters to him, asking him to deliver them to my sister. He was also the first to realize I was going to end it all. Driven by that lingering gratitude, I sought him out after my rebirth and asked if he would stand by me. In response, he gave me a lawyer's details and revealed that grandma had left a secret will specifically for me. We do not know what kind of will. Father's suspicious gaze wavered back and forth between his two sons. The moment he heard me mention a legal testament, he questioned me in a stern, low voice. I maintained a cold silence, waiting for Assistant Lin and the attorney. Without another word, the lawyer stepped forward. After a brief, formal introduction, he began to read aloud the last will of my grandmother, Mrs. Luo, who spent decades building the Luo Group from the ground up. Nurturing it with my own hands, this company became as precious as my own child. Therefore, I hold the absolute right to choose who I entrust with its future. My total equity in the Luo Group is exactly 73%, and I decree 52% of that total goes unconditionally to my grandson, Luo Jinghang. The moment I pass, he becomes the sole legal owner of this 52% stake. Additionally, a foundation project I established, a private fund titled the Long Journey Home, serves as my grandson's ultimate coming-of-age gift. The second he reaches adulthood, he becomes the sole legal owner. Professional trustees have managed it, securing a massive startup fund for when he comes of age. As soon as the lawyer finished reading, the entire room descended into absolute chaos. Over 70% of the shares, nearly everything, went to me. My sister knit her brows, demanding, "Why were we never told? Has this will even been legally notarized?" The lawyer replied with professional poise, "It was fully notarized. We delayed execution because the late Mrs. Luo explicitly specified that if Mr. Luo faced no hardships, we should wait until his graduation." But seeing the desperate state he was in when he found us, Luo Yuran's eyes widened as realization hit her. Originally, this entire inheritance was meant for me. But by my teens, Grandma must have seen the blatant neglect from my parents and their toxic obsession with Jimin. Grandma tried reasoning with my parents countless times, but they refused to listen. They claimed they favored Jimin because he was a well-behaved, gentle little boy. Losing his birth parents meant he deserved a mountain of affection, they said. That neglect was why Grandma, right up to her final breath on her sickbed, constantly worried my parents would treat me like absolute garbage. Reality proved her right. I suffered deeply from my family's toxic favoritism, spiraling into misery as the years went on. So when I finally tracked down that lawyer, I had hit rock bottom. It was the exact moment Liang Jimin tried to frame me as a gambler. Hearing Grandma's wishes echoed again, I couldn't hold back my tears. She was my only real pillar in this house, while everyone else resented me for refusing to bow down to Liang Jimin, blaming me for every single conflict. Only Grandma cared, only she comforted me. I wiped my nose, fighting back sobs, and pulled out my tablet. Furthermore, regarding those gambling allegations, here is my ironclad alibi. Under the inheritance protocols, legal counsel has already verified every detail to ensure they are 100% authentic and indisputable. Before I could even finish, Liang Jimin erupted into a manic, agonized scream. Luo Jinghang, why? Why is it that after I struggled and clawed for so long, you still managed to snatch everything away? Hearing Jimin's pathetic confession, I threw my head back and laughed. Once I finished, I stood directly before him, looking down at him like dirt. Didn't I warn you about this a long time ago? Everything happening to you now, you brought entirely on yourself. Jinghang, Pei Qinghe called out, her brow furrowed in a whisper. You planned this from the start, didn't you? Then, Luo Yuran finally snapped out of it too. This relentless, calculated counterattack couldn't have been built overnight. I knew exactly when Liang Jimin would try to frame me, so I had all this evidence ready to drop today. I stared down at the lunatic writhing on the floor, sneering as I replied, damn right. I've been waiting for this day. Only then did my parents realize how catastrophically they had failed. My mother reached out with a trembling, unsteady hand, trying to grab me where I stood. I didn't want her touch, stepping back with lightning-fast reflexes. I watched her with wary eyes. Seeing my cold rejection, her eyes welled with tears, and in a quivering voice she managed to choke out my name, Jinghang. My father glared at Liang Jimin in total agony, wishing he could undo his choices. To think you were such a monster. I watched the entire circus unfold in silence. Suddenly, I remembered the livestream was still running. Right before their stunned faces, I retrieved my hidden phone from the flower basket and slowly walked back upstairs. The tables had turned so fast. Too much had happened during a single dinner, shattering their entire reality. As they watched me carry my hidden phone up toward the sanctuary of my bedroom, Pei Qinghe followed closely. But as she reached my door, she overheard me speaking to someone. Yeah, gathering all the evidence took some time. It's been in the works for a month, maybe more. Pei Qinghe froze at the threshold, confused. Who was I talking to? Then, a knock echoed. I was explaining the situation live to my online viewers when I heard the knock. Turning around, I saw Pei Qinghe standing there. Come on in, I said. She entered and marched straight to my side. Watching me disable the camera, she realized I had been broadcasting the entire time. Wait, did you stream everything that just happened? She asked. I gave a cold nod. Yes. And if you're wondering if I streamed the whole dinner, the answer is also yes. In fact, we're live right now. Make it quick and get out. Pei Qinghe glanced at my screen, quickly memorizing the room ID. Without another word, she turned and left. I stood up and firmly locked the door behind her. Now that Liang Jimin's crimes were exposed, my sister would handle the family cleanup. But when it came to Pei Qinghe, I was the only one who could settle that score. The moment Pei Qinghe got home, she booted up her computer, desperately searching for my livestream channel. But the broadcast was already over. She had no choice but to scour the internet for any recorded clips of my stream. To her surprise, several viewers had uploaded full replays. She clicked through them, starting from my very first broadcast. The further she watched, the heavier her guilt became. A suffocating mix of dread took hold of her, watching me face the blatant neglect and betrayal of my family, condemned without a single chance to explain myself. And then, there was my mother's violent slap. My face was visibly swollen on camera. It must have looked agonizing. She squeezed her eyes shut, feeling the air being sucked out of the room. Her heart ached so intensely she could barely breathe. In all those moments she wasn't by my side, I was enduring absolute hell. All those times I reached out to her in tears, every single word I said was the absolute truth. But what had she done in return? She had blindly chosen to believe Liang Jimin's lies, just like the rest of the Luo family. She completely ignored me, discarding my cries for help. And now, I didn't trust her at all. Pei Qinghe grabbed her phone and dialed my number. After several rings, my voice finally answered. "Qinghe, you watched the replays, didn't you?" "I watched them, and I'm so incredibly sorry," she cried. "I finally understand why you wanted to break up. But Jinghang, how did you know all those specific details? How could you predict every single event before it happened?" As Pei Qinghe voiced that heavy question, a dark, unsettling suspicion began to claw at her heart. She sensed the truth. The truth was far more complex than the cheap dream excuse I had casually thrown to my livestream viewers. Before I could even respond, Pei Qinghe spoke up again. "Jinghang, can we please just talk face to face? Fine, let's go for a walk tomorrow at 2 in the afternoon. Let's meet at that old shop we used to visit. Deal. See you tomorrow." The next day, Pei Qinghe stood nervously outside a bakery called The Rhythm. She spotted me from a distance as I walked toward her. It was midsummer, but a terrifying torrential downpour the night before had caused the temperature to plummet. A fierce wind whipped through the 20-degree air. With no sun in sight, the sky was a gloomy gray. Yet the air felt refreshing and cool. I was dressed simply in a crisp white shirt and black trousers. For the first time, Pei Qinghe felt a pang of regret for leaving me all alone here in this country while she went abroad to study. Looking at me, she realized I had fully grown up. I was a world away from the person I used to be, and she had missed too much of my transformation. She just stood there, staring at me, frozen in place until I was standing directly in front of her. "Qinghe?" I noticed her eyes were locked on me even after I had closed the distance. She remained utterly speechless, so I took the initiative to break the silence. Pei Qinghe finally snapped out of it. "Jinghang, you are here. Do you want to grab some cake?" I slowly shook my head. I used to crave the sweets from this shop, but I couldn't even remember when I had completely lost my appetite for sugar. "Let's walk. I know you're burning with questions, and I am ready to tell you everything." I then led her through a maze of narrow alleys to the riverbank. Finding an empty bench, I sat down and looked up at her, gesturing for her to join me. Once she settled in, I turned toward her and let a faint smile slip. My voice was calm as I spoke, but my words left Pei Qinghe paralyzed in utter shock. "Qinghe, I have already died once before." I stared at the look of pure horror on her face while maintaining my eerily tranquil tone. Pei Qinghe looked as if she had misheard me. She gazed at me completely shell-shocked, her tongue tied as she struggled to find a response. She could only stare blankly at me. I think I managed a faint smile, but the warmth never reached my eyes. Despite the slight curve of my lips, my eyes were drowning in an ocean of sorrow. "Weren't you curious about why I know exactly how all of this unfolds?" "It's because I've already lived through it all. Yes, including that slap from yesterday. That was actually the second time I have endured it." Pei Qinghe knit her brows, looking at me with absolute, pure disbelief. How is that even possible? Even if it were just a dream? I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. It seemed she really had watched every single livestream of mine. "It wasn't a dream, Qinghe. That was just a convenient lie to pacify the netizens." I turned my head to face her, my eyes narrowing into cold slits. Amidst the howling winds of the riverbank, Pei Qinghe had a sudden chilling epiphany. She felt as if I were a dark angel ascended from the depths of hell. After all, I couldn't exactly tell my viewers that I had been reincarnated. Pei Qinghe sucked in a sharp, cold breath. She stared at me in total disbelief, unable to fathom how I could speak of such things with such haunting composure. I gave her a long, searching look after she spoke, before turning my gaze back to the distant river. My voice remained as indifferent as ever. It's the truth. In my past life, I died at 25. Cause of death: late-stage pancreatic cancer, and suicide by jumping. Pei Qinghei's brow twitched in horror. She never imagined a fate so gruesome and tragic. How had I let it reach such a terminal stage? And why did it end with me leaping to my death? Pei Qinghei remained silent, lost in her thoughts, but I could read her mind like an open book. I continued, "You probably think it sounds absurd, right? That the son of the powerful Luo family, the heir to a fortune, would choose to end his own life just because of pancreatic cancer. But do you have any idea how pathetic my existence truly was? In my past life, I was a complete fool. I pathetically hoped my parents and sister would eventually love me. I held on to the hope that you'd return and save me. But no one ever came. When Liang Jiaming framed me for gambling, my family swallowed his lies without hesitation. Even when I was diagnosed with terminal cancer and shoved the medical reports in their faces, they called it a fake." Pei Qinghei seemed to be infected by my suffocating sorrow, her entire chest tightening as grief coiled around her heart, leaving her struggling for air. "Jinghang, what happened? Are you asking why you never stood up for me?" I locked my gaze onto hers with lethal intensity, my voice dripping with venomous sarcasm as I pierced her soul. "Can you figure it out for yourself? You're only 22 right now, and you've already lost all faith in me. Between my actual artwork and the stolen trash he gave my sister, your instinct was to assume that I was the liar. Think about how 3 more years of that would look." I paused for a fleeting second, letting out a hollow, soulless laugh. "Ha! Pei Qinghei, don't pretend you don't know your own cold nature. If things had continued on that dark trajectory, do you honestly believe that 3 years from now, anything would change? That you'd believe I was dying, and not just some gambling addict?" Pei Qinghei stood frozen, unable to find a single word to refute me, because in her heart, she knew she would have failed me. Looking at my shattered state, she tried to speak, desperate to offer some defense to claim she wouldn't be that monster in this life. But her words felt empty and pathetically weak. Before she could even untie her messy thoughts, I ruthlessly detonated the final devastating bomb. "Pei Qinghei, do you know the exact day I died?" Dread flooded her heart, and she slowly turned to look at me. Within my eyes, there was a raging inferno of fury and pure, unadulterated grief. "I died on the day of your wedding to Liang Jiaming. Right from the rooftop of the cathedral where you said, 'I do,' I took a leap into the abyss." That's impossible." Pei Qinghei bolted upright from the bench in total panic, staring down at me on the bench, her face a mask of total disbelief. The gale force winds disheveled my short hair, strands dancing wildly across my forehead. I locked eyes with Pei Qinghei, my own vision blurring as they turned bloodshot. The howling gusts tore my words into jagged fragments, yet they seemed to echo in slow motion, sinking into Pei Qinghei's consciousness one agonizing syllable at a time. "Why impossible? Did Liang Jiaming use his life to blackmail you, or had you simply fallen for him 3 years from now?" Pei Qinghei was momentarily paralyzed, unable to counter, desperate to claim she would never do that, aching to scream that I was the only one she loved. But as I had pointed out, given the trajectory of her past choices, how could she offer such empty, hollow promises? It was only in this moment that Pei Qinghei finally understood exactly why I knew about her constant secret calls with Zemming and Yuan, and why they sparked such raw fear in me. She finally realized why, the moment I sensed her trust in me wavering, I became so hell-bent on breaking up. It was because I had already seen the final tragic script. If I had not clawed my way back from the grave, if I hadn't struggled to unearth that hidden evidence, following the original path of destiny, she herself would have let her love for me erode away under a daily mountain of suspicion and distrust. It was because I had witnessed that bitter end that I was so ruthless in ending our relationship. But now, everything could still be saved, right? She still had a shot at redemption, didn't she? "Jinghang, I'm so sorry. I am apologizing on behalf of my future self. But please, just give me one more chance, okay? Let me stay by your side. Let me make things right." I turned to her with a cold, hollow laugh. "No, Pei Qinghei, your apologies are unnecessary. Just as your love has become entirely irrelevant to me. We are over. Let that be. Please don't let this be the end. Jinghang, don't you dare walk away." Pei Qinghei collapsed to her knees before me, gripping my hand like a lifeline while staring up into my eyes. Her eyes held a frantic panic I'd never seen before. "Jinghang, I'm not letting you go. I know it's impossible for you to forgive me right now, but please don't be this cold. Just give me one more shot, please. I won't go back overseas. I'm staying right here by your side. I'll treat you better than anyone ever has, and when the day finally comes that you can forgive me, we can start over, okay?" Pei Qinghei's voice was fractured and trembling, yet her grip on my hands remained tight and desperate. Her eyes were drowning in a sea of pure supplication, sending a sharp pang of agony straight through my heart. In my previous life, I had begged her just like this, imploring her not to cave to my parents and Jimin, pleading with her not to marry that monster. But back then, her heart never once wavered, Now the tables have turned, and she is the one begging. I stared at Pei Qinghe in stony silence, fighting back the bitter sting in my nose and the suffocating lump in my throat. Hardening my heart, I rasped, "Wait. If you want to process this reality, take your time." Lately, I've been completely buried under graduation chaos. My final project and internship duties hit all at once, leaving me completely overwhelmed every single day. Meanwhile, Luo Yuran finally decided to step up and actually act like an older sister. Once she got those incriminating files on Liang Jimin, she moved with ruthless efficiency to uncover the truth. It turns out that when Liang Jimin was just a teenager, spoiled rotten by our parents' blind affection, he had far more pocket money than he knew how to spend. Because he was young, naive, and inexperienced, he was the perfect, gullible target. He was instantly lured in by degenerate, hard-partying, gambling trust fund brats who dragged him into the underground casino scene. He quickly spiraled into a life of debauchery, completely losing his soul to the high-stakes lifestyle. From that point on, Liang Jimin began meticulously masquerading as me, using my identity as a shield to haunt the casinos. So Ximing had this plan from the very beginning, Luo Yuran said softly, her eyes fixed on me across the room. My parents, having heard the devastating truth, cast cautious, guilt-ridden glances toward my end of the table where I sat eating in absolute silence. Neither of them dared to utter a single word. For the first time since that very first meal, I sat at a table with them. Looking at the son they had discarded, my parents finally realized the sheer depth of their cruelty to me. Yet they were paralyzed, not knowing where to begin making amends. As for Liang Jimin, despite their years of unconditional doting, even after his heinous betrayals were fully exposed, they still lacked the stomach to cut him off completely. So, when Luo Yuran initially proposed exiling him to a brutal overseas military reform school, the moment the suggestion was made, they fought it with every fiber of their being. Ximing is so fragile and prone to illness. A foreign country is bad enough, but a military academy? How could they have peace of mind? That was until I dropped a cold truth. If you don't ship him off, are you keeping him here just to fund his gambling addiction? My parents instantly went mute, unable to utter another word. Jimin's transformation into a monster was largely fueled by their toxic overindulgence and blatant favoritism. Besides, with Jimin gone, I was now their only remaining son. The past atrocities they committed were completely beyond repair, so how could they possibly dare to defy my wishes now? Jimin had already been reported and dealt with, but the rift between my parents and me remains a massive, bottomless black hole that no amount of effort can ever hope to bridge. They are utterly lost, with no clue how to fix the damage. The sins they committed cannot be erased with a simple smile. Just like the day they tried to play the happy family card, my mother personally slaved away in the kitchen cooking the braised pork I used to obsess over, alongside a spread of every dish I once loved. But I just stood by the table, cast a fleeting glance, and didn't touch a single bite. I didn't even give them the satisfaction of seeing me sit down. Faced with their pathetic attempts to curry favor, I met them with eyes as cold as ice. Don't go out of your way to bribe me. Stop pretending to be loving parents. I don't need it, and I certainly don't want it. Without a backward glance, I turned and headed upstairs. At the foot of the staircase, my back to them, I muttered that my heart was already dead. Your love is better left unsaid. It just feels completely redundant. My voice was flat, devoid of any emotional peaks, making it impossible to detect either love or hatred. I sounded like a detached stranger watching a fire from across the river, an outsider standing completely beyond their world. Only then did the old couple finally realize that some scars are simply too deep to ever heal. I've been swamped with work lately, and looking at the calendar, it's been ages since my last stream. When I finally logged back in, after months of silence, I couldn't help but wonder if my entire fanbase had already abandoned me. To my surprise, the moment the stream went live, a massive crowd of loyal fans was already camping in the chat. They flooded the screen, asking if I had any new predictions or exciting tea to spill. I just smiled and shook my head, saying my visions might be a rare occurrence from now on. I suppose my life has finally stabilized and gotten on the right track, so perhaps I don't need those visions anymore. After speaking, I stood up and gave a sincere, deep bow to thank my audience. Regardless, I owe you all a huge debt of gratitude. If it hadn't been for all of you helping me verify the truth behind Liang Jimin's gambling addiction, showing the world that everyone witnessed it firsthand, it might have been framed as the Luo family pulling strings just to pin the blame on Liang Jimin's head. Without you, the rumors would probably still be spiraling. After news of Liang Jimin's gambling spree broke, someone was actually pulling strings from the shadows, launching a tidal wave of misinformation. They claimed the Luo family was oppressing their adopted son and framing him for the crimes of their biological child, painting Liang Jimin as the ultimate victim. However, the narrative flipped in less than 24 hours. Luo Yuran hadn't even found time to hire a public relations firm before my livestream viewers took matters into their own hands. They spontaneously uploaded the original audio recordings from the scene. One listen was enough to know the truth. As for the trolls trying to smear the Luo group's name, Luo Yuan hunted them down with terrifying speed, slapping them with lawsuits that left them speechless. In response to my gratitude, the chat exploded with comments telling me not to mention it. They kept pleading for more streams, insisting they just wanted to watch me create my art. I agreed with a light-hearted smile, then recalled my second objective for today's broadcast. I pulled out that notebook, opening it to a fresh page. In the past few days, I suddenly felt a wave of nausea while showering, realizing with a jolt that things were shifting from my past life. My tumor was manifesting ahead of schedule. The viewers saw me reveal the notebook, and as I prepared to write, digital tears flooded the chat. Everyone was frantically asking what was wrong. I didn't utter a word, simply writing, "Today is October 27th. I'm heading to the hospital for a checkup tomorrow. The diagnosis will be pancreatic cancer. I hope fortune favors me this time, and that it can be cured." The audience was paralyzed, and the stream was instantly buried under a wave of prayers. I felt the world's kindness radiating toward me, my eyes welling with tears. Just as I went to thank everyone, Pei Qinghe's call flashed across my screen. I hit answer, only to hear Pei Qinghe's voice trembling uncontrollably on the other end. With a choked, raspy sob, she cried, "Jinghang, you are going to be okay, I promise. I am coming to the hospital with you tomorrow." I froze, suddenly realizing Pei Qinghe had been watching my livestream. I let out a soft chuckle, turning the tables to comfort her. "It is fine, Qinghe, I am going to make it. Yes, you absolutely will be fine. I will be right by your side tomorrow. No, in your last life, you did not get treatment in time. This time, things must be different. They have to be." I knew she was falling apart. I could hear Pei Qinghe struggling to maintain a facade of calm, shattered by jagged sobs and a breaking voice. Warmth stirred in my chest. I said goodbye to my viewers, ending the livestream to focus entirely on comforting her. I knew exactly what she feared, that I could not outrun the tragic fate of my past life, and would simply wither away and die. I had my own lingering fears, but I firmly believed a turning point was near. Plus, I still had the good luck charm Grandma gave me. The next day, the results were as I expected. Fortunately, the silver lining was that it was early-stage cancer. The tumor was small and had not metastasized yet. A simple surgical resection was all I needed. Pei Qinghe scrambled to handle every single detail, only calming down once she was by my side in the ward. Backed by both the Pei and Luo families, the surgery was performed quickly and was a complete success. My recovery went incredibly fast, leaving me plenty of time to attend my own graduation. On the day I finally graduated, Luo Yuan brought our parents to take photos with me. Although our broken relationship had not returned to childhood's pure intimacy, the icy tension had certainly thawed significantly. She arrived holding a massive, gorgeous bouquet, walking toward me as the surrounding crowd watched with sheer envy. In a daze, I felt as if I could see my past self standing in the bustling crowd, wearing a smile of genuine happiness. I accepted the flowers, beaming as I posed for photos with everyone. The agonizing regrets of my previous life were finally redeemed in this new existence. Perhaps Grandma's love moved the heavens, granting me this miraculous second chance. Or maybe my past life was simply so wretched that even God could not bear to watch. Whatever the reason, I am finally filled with bliss. 1 year later, my private art gallery opened in the city's busiest district, aptly named the Homecoming. Many people curiously asked about the origin of the name, but I only offered a knowing smile without explaining. Only I truly understood the weight behind those words. It represented finding the way back after losing my path, the relief of surviving a grand catastrophe, and finally escaping that bitter sea of family trauma to find my true way home. Luo Yuan became a regular at the gallery, bringing her friends to support me. My parents also dropped by occasionally, though they always walked on eggshells around me, terrified of saying anything that might upset me. I no longer hated them, but some traumas require an eternity to truly heal. Pei Qinghe eventually resigned from her prestigious job abroad to start her own design studio here in the city. We took a leap of faith, dating again and doing normal things like watching movies, sharing quiet meals, and taking strolls like a normal couple. However, we both silently avoid marriage. Even when a wound heals, the scar remains as a permanent reminder. We just need more time for those marks to fade. Liang Jimin was ultimately deported to a harsh foreign military reformatory. Word reached us that his life there is a living hell. He frequently sends pathetic letters home begging for mercy, but this time my parents hardened their hearts. Luo Yuan said this was a toxic path he chose for himself, and now he must walk it to the bitter end. In the quiet dead of night, I find myself remembering my past self, the fragile Jinghang who took that final desperate leap from the cathedral rooftop. The sheer hopelessness and agony I felt back then has finally begun to blur, replaced by a genuine spark of anticipation for the future. I am alive, building a successful career, cherished by the one I love, and holding a family bond that, though fractured and imperfect, is slowly being mended. That is enough. Outside, the sun slowly descends, casting a vibrant orange glow across the gallery's towering floor-to-ceiling glass. Pei Qinghe pushes the door open and steps inside, holding my favorite milk tea. Still painting? I will be done in a second, I say, setting aside my tools and walking over to her. I take the drink from her hand. Did you visit Grandma today? She asks gently. Yes, I told her the gallery is open and that business is absolutely booming. I know she would be so proud of me. She definitely is. We stand side by side, gazing at the endless stream of people and cars below. This city is vast and intimidating, large enough to swallow the joys and sorrows of millions. But it is also remarkably small, small enough that I only care about protecting this one little corner and the person standing right next to me. Because I crawled back from the depths of hell, I know absolute despair, and it is precisely because of that darkness that I cherish this hard-won happiness more than anything. Life is a solitary vessel navigating relentless storms, but as long as there is a home to return to, we can and fearlessly set sail toward the horizon.